Faites appel, s'il vous plaît, monsieur le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier, Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent, Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade, Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre, Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin,
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Gruville,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie, Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern, Madame le député Laddie,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Thadier, Monsieur le député Luce, Madame le député Doublé, Monsieur le député Morel,
Présent.
Madame le député de Hegera, Monsieur le député Ayer, Monsieur le député Ward,
Présent.
Madame le député Alves, Madame le député Gardner, Monsieur le député Gorse,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham, Madame le député Moore,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph, Monsieur le député Balash, Monsieur le député Coles, Madame le député Poré, Monsieur le député Wall, Madame le député Miles,
Présente.
Madame le député Scott,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf, Madame le député Curtis,
Présente.
Madame le député Feltham,
Présente.
Madame le député Binet, Madame le député Jeune, Madame le député Miller,
Présente.
Madame le député Howe,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Binet, Monsieur le député Ferry, Madame le député Kovac,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis, Madame le député Ward,
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson,
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews,
Monsieur le greffier.
Prions Dieu. Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toutes leurs délibérations étant accompagnées de ta bénédiction réussissent au bien et au soulagement du peuple qu'il t'a plu de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant « Notre Père,
Qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite en la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Ne nous amène pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car toi, le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier, Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent,
Défaut.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade,
Défaut.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Thadier,
Présent.
Madame le député Doublé,
Présente.
Madame le député Alves,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Farnham,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph,
Sir, Deputy Joseph is out of the island on state's business.
State's business.
So before we start, could I raise the defo on the Constable of St Brellards?
Yes, I think you can at this point. The Connétable of Saint-Brelade. Les États sont constitués. I'm sure members would like to join me in welcoming His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor of the Chamber this morning. Members may wish to note that today marks a very special anniversary. It is 360 years ago today that the Royal Mace arrived in the island, a gift from Charles II to reflect his appreciation of the loyalty and support that the bailiff at the time had shown, along with the people of Jersey, to the King during the English Civil War. As you may be aware, the King had also taken sanctuary in Jersey for several months, staying at Elizabeth Castle. We had declared him as king in 1649, some 11 years before his restoration to the throne. The Royal Mace remains a symbol of the island's loyalty to the Crown. It was a gift to precede the bailiffs of the day, and I am honoured to be its present custodian. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B. A number of matters have been presented or laid as described in the consolidated order paper under C. The following matters have been lodged under D, and this may take a short while. Draft Public Health and Safety Rented Dwellings Licence in Jersey Regulations P40, lodged by the Minister of the Environment. Draft Public Health and Safety Rented Dwellings Licence in Jersey Regulations, 11th Amendment, lodged by the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel. The same regulations, 11th Amendment, 2nd Amendment, lodged by the same panel. The proposed government plan 2024 to 27, P72, 4th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Curtis of St Helier. Proposed government plan 2024 to 2027, 5th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Coles. The 6th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Kovac. The 7th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Mezek. The 8th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Ward. The 9th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Ward. The 10th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Andrews. The 11th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Andrews. 12th Amendment, lodged by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. The 13th Amendment, lodged by the Connétable of St Martin. The 14th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Mezek. The 15th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Feltham. The 16th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Coles. The 17th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Alves. The 18th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Alves. The 19th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Mezek. The 20th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Curtis. The 21st Amendment, lodged by the Children, Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. The 22nd Amendment, lodged by Deputy Mezek. 23rd Amendment, lodged by Deputy Luce. The Draft Finance 2024 Budget Jersey Law Amendment, lodged by Deputy Andrews. The Draft Finance 2024 Budget Jersey Law Second Amendment, lodged by Deputy Coles. Appointment of non-executive directors and new chair of the States of Jersey Development Company, lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources, P95. Appointment of the Commissioner for Children and Young People, P96, lodged by the Chief Minister. Draft Crime Public Order Jersey Law, P97, lodged by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. The following have been withdrawn in accordance with Standing Order 34.1. Draft Public Health and Safety Rented Dwelling Licensing Jersey Regulations P40 Amendment. The same law Second Amendment. The same law Third Amendment. The same law regulations, I should rather say, Fourth Amendment. The same regulations Fifth Amendment. The same regulations Sixth Amendment. The same regulations Seventh Amendment. The same Eighth Amendment. The same Ninth Amendment. The same 10th Amendment, the same Draft Planning and Building, I beg your pardon, Commencement Number 8 Amendment Law, P71, Amendment to Standing Orders, Statements, P85, and Healthcare Expenditure Projections, P86. And one is tempted to add, and a partridge in a pear tree. But perhaps I won't. There is nothing under F, G, H. A number of answers have been made to written questions.
So
Yes.
might this be the appropriate moment to ask whether the Assembly is willing to debate today Projet 90, of which I have given notice?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm looking now through. Project 90 is your.
Projet 90 is the draft planning and building amendment number 8, repeal Jersey law.
When you mean take today, do you mean at this sitting or today?
At this sitting, sir.
At this sitting.
Yes.
Because we've not quite reached the point. It's normally at the beginning of public business that we deal with the advancement of propositions that haven't yet been lodged for the requisite period, and I think that yours falls within that, doesn't it? Sorry if I'm. You began your question, Deputy, with "Is this the correct time?" It's obviously an application that you're perfectly entitled to make, but the time we would normally make it will be at the commencement of public business.
Very well.
Sorry, I'm sorry I wasn't clear. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
So yes, if I could let the Assembly know that I have a hospital appointment this morning. I have 2 oral questions which may fall whilst I'm out of the Assembly. Deputy Coles has agreed to await my excuse me, to await my return to answer the question. I should be back within the period of oral questions, and Deputy Tadier has agreed that Deputy Jeune will answer if I'm not here at that time. I hope that's satisfactory.
Right. So we will move all of your questions to the end of the question list if you're not in the Assembly, Deputy, and that if you are not back in time to take those questions, then Deputy Jeune will answer them on your behalf. Is that correct?
Not quite, sir. Deputy Cole's question can be answered at the end. Deputy Tadier would like Deputy Jeune to answer on my behalf wherever it occurs.
Where it falls.
Where it occurs. Yes.
Very well. Thank you. I'll try and remember that as we go. But I'm sure those will remind you if not. Very well. We now come to oral questions.
Sir, before we proceed, if I may, so I've had advice from the Connétable of Saint-Laurent that she is having to attend a hospital with a close family member. I wonder if she could be marked excusez.
Members agree? That sounds appropriate to me. Therefore, excusez. Yes, we now come to oral questions. And the first question is Deputy Howell will ask of the Chair of the Privileges and Procedures Committee. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chair advise what consultation took place, if any, with the BBC before they ceased their live streaming of States meetings, and will she commit to liaising with them to try to restore this service? Thank you, sir.
Chair.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for her question, and I can confirm that there was no consultation before the BBC took its decision to cease the live streaming of the States meetings. And yes, of course, I'd be happy to liaise with them. I will say that the States GREF became aware of the service not being available via online queries in September 2023, at which point the BBC was contacted. And the BBC informed the GREF that given the very few people using the service, it could not justify its continuation. The BBC also said that it was a duplication of the service provided by the States Assembly, and it felt it better to use journalists' time on covering state stories across TV, radio and digital instead. So I will be happy, though, to liaise with them.
Supplementary question, Deputy?
Just to say thank you, and if she would be kind enough, because it is impacting on elderly people especially who do not have Wi-Fi and who just have radios, and they would. Thank you.
Yes, I mean you thanked them. That's fine. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Chair if this has provoked her to give consideration to the general provision of live streaming of States meetings, and if there is to be an absence of radio broadcasts from the BBC, if she's giving any consideration to improvements to the online broadcasting, such as the quality of the picture, which I don't think appears to be as good as we were necessarily promised when we first introduced live streaming, and an improvement which would help other media outlets be able to use it for their broadcasts.
I thank the Deputy for his question, and I had not given it consideration so far about the quality of the live broadcasts and the picture quality, but as he's brought it up, I'm happy to take that forward.
Supplemental, Deputy? Deputy Tadier.
Does the chair of PPC agree that in order for a radio live stream broadcast to happen, it's not necessary for the BBC to do that, but actually, and actually looked into the states actually reopening the radio streaming, perhaps on the same frequency, perhaps on a different frequency, so that whoever at home, whatever age they are, can listen on a radio rather than necessarily needing to use the internet?
Oh, sorry, and I had not given any consideration to the state's own radio service, and that's something that we will discuss at PPC. Thank you.
And a supplementary, sir.
Yes.
I think it relates sufficiently overlapping, is that we do recall that the two boxes up here were used once for the BBC, who did stream, but also for a media presence. So does the chair believe that she could contact the media, because although they may have access to audio-visual streaming, by not being present in the assembly, they're potentially missing out on a lot of the untold stories, the body language, the facial expressions of members that are not put on camera that we choose to disseminate, and therefore it might be worth them.
I'm wondering if you could be slightly more succinct in your
sir,
supplementary
yeah.
question. It's not sounding very much like the word succinct as I understand it, Deputy, but if you could.
I was going to say it's been a long day, sir, but it's I'm preempting it being a long week. Given the fact that they are the fourth estate and they play an important role to the public, would you extend that invite for the public galleries and the boxes to be used if they're available?
Yes, I will bring this to PPC and we will look at this, and I do agree that it was much better when we did have the live broadcasts, and you could see the nuances of the faces and listen. And I know that huge amounts of people used to listen to the states on the radio, so it's something that I must admit I hadn't given that much thought to, but now I realise that, yes, I'll bring it to PPC and we'll discuss it. Thank you.
Conor Saviour.
Thank you, sir. I too, sir, have had residents complain to me that they did like to listen to the states. Many people listen whilst at their desk doing their daily job, sir. And in the interest of openness and democracy, I think we need to pursue this as much as we can. I myself listened to it before I had the honour of being elected to the states, sir, so there are unintended consequences. But I think the problem being, sir, that there is no announcement as to whom is speaking if it's on the radio, if there's not a presenter locally. So maybe the Grefs department maybe fill that gap, sir. But I think it's essential that this service is maintained. Does the chair not agree?
Yes, I think I've said to previous speakers that I do agree, and I'd just like to say that the Deputy Bailiff has suggested exploring the charter between the government and the BBC, which is the agreement with the British Broadcasting Corporation for the provision of broadcasting. And, and a member of the GREF is pursuing this. So we're looking at the charter, and we will look at trying to reinvigorate radio broadcast from the chamber. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Conor Tard. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Can the chair of PPC just confirm that the digital engagement team are actually currently looking at widening the offering for streaming across platforms like YouTube and Facebook when we are sitting in the Assembly live, and that this is being currently overseen by the PPC subcommittee that I chair, the Political Awareness and Education Committee. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I thank Deputy Alves for her prompt on that, and yes, I can confirm that that is correct.
Supplemental confirmations of any sort? Final supplementary, Deputy Hull. Very well, we come to question 2. The Deputy, Rob Wall, will ask of the Chair of the States Employment Board. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Chair, would the Chair advise what additional offer, if any, has been made to teachers to resolve the current pay dispute? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. To seek an end to the dispute for 2023 and reach a resolution, an offer of an additional £1,000 as a non-consolidated payment for teachers employed on the 31st of December of this year was made to the unions. This offer was on condition of the acceptance of an essential service agreement. However, as members will have seen, the unions have rejected this offer.
Supplemental question?
Yes, please. Thank you, sir. Can the chair confirm whether the same £1,000 unconsolidated offer was offered to and rejected by head teachers previously? Thank you, sir.
So, as members will know, discussions were had with the NEHT, representing the head teachers, with the Education Minister, and in a separate agreement, that decision was taken to offer a payment to head teachers, which is called the Education Reform Allowance, and that is subject to a separate agreement, and it's a special payment under the Public Finances Manual.
So my question was really quite clear as to whether the same £1,000 offer was offered to teachers previously. I'm quite aware of what they accepted, but the question was, I think, very clear, sir. Was that same offer? I think the question
was, has it been offered to head teachers previously?
Was it previously offered, the same offer that now offered to teachers and then rejected by head teachers?
I'm afraid I heard your question as head teachers, Deputy Ward, that you'd asked if it previously been offered to head teachers.
Yes, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Sorry, sir. So the answer is yes or no, I think, sir.
Are you able to provide clarification on that, Chief Minister?
Sir, I don't recall. There have been so many discussions and various negotiations with unions. I can seek to confirm that for sure later this morning, and I will circulate that information to States members, and I'm happy also to share that publicly. But I would not want to give an inaccurate answer, and therefore I hope that the Deputy will allow me to double check.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. When the offer of £1,000 non-consolidated was made, where was it intended, what budget was it intended that would come from?
That is a matter for the Education Department.
And, sir, and does the Chief Minister believe that the Education Department has the funding that it needs to be able to offer a decent pay offer to teachers so that they can suspend their industrial action and end the disruption that the education service is facing?
Sir, as I said in my previous answer, that is a matter for the Education Department, and what we have to do as the State's Employment Board is be fair to all members of the public service. We were criticised, if members recall, when we made an offer to the public service of 7.9%. We have to ensure that we are properly remunerating the people who dedicate their work to public service, and we're grateful to them all for doing that. Therefore, we have to treat everybody fairly, but we also are very mindful of the issue of inflation, something that we have to get under control as an island, and for islanders who's currently struggling with the cost of living.
Deputy Tadier.
Yeah. So I'm tempted to say that rents are also inflationary, but the government doesn't seem to want to do anything about controlling those, of course.
Deputy, you know you can't make a political point which isn't related to the question.
Thank you, sir. So that's why I won't do that. The question is, did the Chief Minister and SEB not have any consideration about the wider impact that taking these funds for the increased pay for head teachers out of education's budget might have on the wider education programme, and more importantly, the outcome for pupils, not just those on pupil premium, but pupils more widely?
Well, if the Deputy wants to focus on outcomes, the fact that children are missing out on their education and failing to receive a breakfast club at the moment due to action short of strike action is also hugely damaging for the provision of education to children. Therefore, there is always a balance to strike, and I believe that this government have sought to achieve the best balance to look after our staff and people who dedicate their lives to public service, but equally to look after children and offer them the best possible education that we can.
So I do accept that the strike action is damaging our children, and I blame the government for not having resolved the strike earlier, as I'm sure most of the public do. But the Chief Minister hasn't answered the question about why she hasn't, she's taken the political choice, rather than providing central funding for an uplift in all teachers to end this strike, to come to a compromise and give them a compromise position like they have for the head teachers, that they've actually limited the hands of the Education Minister by saying you have to take this out of your own budget rather than making money available for you. Why did she make that choice?
So I think I gave my answer in the previous answer. Fairness is the name of the game here. We have offered 7.9%, which was a generous offer to people working in our public service. It recognises their dedication and their hard work in these difficult times, but also has a balanced view with regards to not fueling inflation. So that is what we have to do in government, that we have to take balanced decisions, and therefore we have done that.
I have Deputy Feltham, Deputy Sutton, Deputy Alves, and final supplementary. Nothing more on this question. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Given the Chief Minister's answer, or the Chair of the SEB's answer to the previous questions, can she confirm whether or not it is the intention to take the additional money out of schools' budgets?
So that is a matter for the Education Minister. What we have to do is find a way forward. We have offered teachers a binding arbitration process that has been on the table since June and something that they have consistently failed to agree to. So we have very much tried our best. We have also, for some months now, been engaging in terms and conditions discussions with teachers. That was something that arose out of our regular meetings with union members and something that the previous government failed to deliver upon and something that we have taken extremely seriously and we're making good progress. So our commitment to looking after our staff and meeting their needs couldn't be clearer.
Supplemental question, Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Given that we couldn't get assurance about a threat to schools' budgets, could the Chair of the States Employment Board tell the Assembly whether the States Employment Board learned lessons from the last attempt at gain sharing, and if so, what advice she has given the Education Minister in relation to that?
So everybody works in, with the best intentions, and therefore I believe that teachers also work with the best of intentions. Gain sharing is a process. It's a useful process sometimes, and I believe that the Education Minister works closely with her team to deliver the best possible education, the best value for money, for the best outcomes, and I fully support her in that work.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister not accept, the Chief Minister not accept that this is indeed the revival of gain share, whereby teachers are asked to take, if they wish, a pay rise? It comes out of the budget for these children in whose charge they are.
Sorry, sir, I was having to consider what the question was there. So this is a matter for those who manage education budgets. There's always a process to balance budgets. There's always a process of prioritisation. But I think that the Education Minister's focus has been clear throughout. She is an Education Minister who has made investments in service, who has boosted inclusion, and she will continue to do so and take decisions in the best interests of the children whose education we are delivering.
Supplemental question, Deputy Sutton.
Indeed, sir. Does the Chief Minister not accept that this change is affecting the quality of education that our students can receive?
I do not, sir.
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. I've heard the Chief Minister talk about fairness and valuing education. Given that teachers are some of the most highly educated people in our workforce, does the Chief Minister not agree that it is important that they are therefore remunerated accordingly and competitively and not continue to have real-term pay cuts, and that is a way to encourage our students to further their own education if they are to know that they will be remunerated accordingly and appropriately?
Let's not forget that teaching assistants are part of the group that have accepted the 7.9% pay offer. Teaching assistants have also been increased, the number of teaching assistants that we employ, as part of our commitment to improving recruitment and retention and supporting teachers in the workplace. We have to find a balance, a fair way of not fueling inflation, but supporting everyone who works in the public service.
Sorry, sir, my question wasn't answered. I asked if she could confirm whether she agreed with what I was saying, and she didn't. She went on to talk about teaching assistants. Thank you, sir.
Well, I assume the reference to teaching assistants was an example of why the Chief Minister didn't agree with you. But if I have misunderstood that answer, Chief Minister, please clarify.
I think my answers have sought to express the balance that we are trying to achieve.
Yes. Supplementary question.
No, thank you, sir.
A final supplementary question, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I say to the Chair of SEB, is it not simply the fact that what's happened here is that the head teachers have been paid off with an additional payment. I've been rejected of £1,000. That has then been offered to teachers, sir. And in refusing that, as head teachers would have done, they are now being demonised by this government for their actions in standing up for their own rights, in a sort of comments that were made today about the way in which they're damaging children's education.
I'm not sure there was a question there, was there, Deputy?
So I think it was. Is it not the case that what's happened is that head teachers have been
that
paid
part.
off?
Very well.
I
apologise. In which case?
In order to divide a profession.
Is that not the case then, Chief Minister?
So I made it clear earlier that the deal for head teachers is part of an education reform agreement. That is about changing their terms and conditions, and it is a separate agreement with the Education Department. So the negotiations with unions on pay are a separate matter. We have made our best attempts to find a way forward with teaching unions, and it is a matter of great disappointment that we're in this situation today, where the education of children is being impacted.
Well, we come to question 3. The Conotap St Helier will ask for the Minister for Housing and Communities. Conotap.
Thank you, sir. Given the number of new housing units being built or planned in the vicinity of the Millennium Town Park, will the Minister advise whether the government's plan to build a new primary school in the area, rather than an extension to the park, is being reconsidered, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank the Constable for his question. So I have a huge amount of empathy for the Constable. Indeed, before I was elected, one of my commitments, as he well knows, was that the Millennium Town Park should be extended all the way through to St Saviour's Road. And if I'm being honest, that is still my preference today. I still believe that town residents need green space, but I also now recognise that the issues are significantly more complex. The good news is that what this government is proposing will deliver more green space and a new school, albeit not quite in the way I had originally envisaged. Current plans for the former Gas Place site comprise a 2-form entry primary school, including a new nursery and a special educational needs facility, and community facilities. The scheme will also provide new green spaces, improve the network of cycle and walking access across town, and improve the quality of town.
A supplementary piece,
Yes.
Would the Housing Minister not agree with me that there's an important problem of timing here? Andium would have been delivering the extended town park as we stand here today. The extra facilities being offered by the government are distant. They're distant geographically, and so we won't get the marriage value of doubling the size of the town park. But more important, they're distant temporally. They're far in the future, these new parks that we've been promised will be created. And the needs of people in town now are surely worth accommodating. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Constable. Again, I mean, I do agree with you, sir, but I have to say we have a process to go through, and obviously through our Future Places project, of which I know you are a member, sorry, the Constable is a member, apologies, we will work our way through this. As I say, I appreciate his frustration. I'm frustrated as well, but we have to accept there is a process to follow.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. It took hours for the disunity in the newly reshuffled government to appear like that. It's incredible, isn't it? Sir, the Minister referred to his broken manifesto pledge to extend the Millennium Town Park. No ifs, no buts were the words that he used for his voters in St Helier, and it turned out there were plenty of ifs and plenty of buts. So will the Minister confirm whether or not this supposed Future Places group will consider the options that have previously been brought and rejected, unfortunately, by this Assembly when Deputy Coles brought a proposition to look at the available sites in that region so the best of both worlds can be delivered, a good school for the children who deserve it in that part of town and an extended town park when he knows there are plenty of options available to deliver that?
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for his question. Clearly, if there were lots of options, we would already be trying to find those solutions. As the Deputy is aware, we are already currently building on Northern Quarter, which is going to provide much needed homes for the residents of St Helier. But I come back to my point is that the new option on the table will increase the amount of green space in town, and I think it's a good compromise. And we have to tolerate compromise in town when we're having to densify town versus keeping green fields in the countryside.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. The Minister referred to the Northern Quarter development, a planning permission which was varied to increase the density of homes there when Andiam proposed extending the town park, something which no longer counts because of the reversal of that decision. So will the Minister be reviewing the density of the developments that are proposed in that very small part of town to ensure that it has the right number of people accommodated in there so they can have a decent quality of life with plenty of open green space as they deserve and places in schools for their children?
Thank the Deputy for his question. And the reality is the Planning Minister is in charge of density and size of buildings. I want to meet those, we will be meeting all of those requirements. And obviously, what's really good news is that those spaces have been increased to make living more, I'm trying to find the right term, a better quality of life for residents of St Helier. So I say that's within the remit of the Planning Minister, and clearly all homes now are built to these new standards.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Given that new Assistant Chief Minister seems to be against building the school that the Minister did have in his manifesto but then changed his mind on, is the Minister worried about being outgunned around the Council of Ministers table?
Thank the Deputy for his question. The reality is, sir, that we need a new school in the centre of St Helier, and Deputy Ward brought forward that proposition, and which we have to acknowledge is in there and is in the Bridging Island Plan. So there is that choice. So we, as I said before, we have a choice. We either build the full extension of the Millennium Park, or we put, and where do we put the school after that? Do we put it somewhere which is not accessible and easily accessible for those new residents in the centre of town? The whole point of, I'm sure, Deputy's proposition was to ensure that we had good quality education in the centre of town. That was the point. We're fighting over semantics here. We're trying, as I say, to deliver the best of both worlds and the best for everybody that we can. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I thank the Minister for his acknowledgement, even though it may have been through slightly gritted teeth. So can I ask the Minister to reassure the parents, and most importantly, the children at Springfield School in that area, that they will be getting a new school, they will be getting extra green spaces elsewhere, and a slight extension to the park, and this will not be reneged upon because of a current change in personnel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank Deputy for his question. Absolutely. It is in the current government plan, and I will be supporting that government plan.
Final supplementary, Colin Tupperson Saviour.
Thank you, sir. Surely, sir, wherever the new primary school is built, the absolute #1 priority should be child safety. We have many very busy roads in town. Does the Minister not agree?
I thank the Constable for his question. I absolutely do agree. And clearly, citing a school in the centre of town is probably the most safe place for a town school to be, particularly as the networks are developed around there for access by walking and cycling.
Supplemental, Constable. Final supplementary, Constable St Helier.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister not agree with me that the children of St Helier, their parents and their grandparents have far more to gain from the government doubling the size of the town park than they do from building a school on the site? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Constable, for your question. Have they got more benefit? Absolutely. I'm sure in an ideal world they have. Sadly, we have to make compromises, but as I already said, we are increasing the overall amount of green space in the proposed project.
Very well. We come now to question 4. The Deputy Andrews will ask the Minister for Infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether consideration has been or is to be given for the Jersey Development Company to be appointed a property manager for all government-owned dwellings to allow complete oversight of all government stocks, and whether this change could provide additional accommodation for key workers?
Minister.
Sir, I think the simple answer to that is no, and probably no again. I'm not quite sure how it is that appointing the JDC to take over the accommodation stock of property holdings would deliver more accommodation for workers, but I'm sure there'll be a supplementary which might make matters a little clearer for me, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Indeed, sir. Does the Minister not believe that the Jersey Development Company using private capital is better placed compared to Jersey Property Holdings, who has a rather diminutive budget of £8 million per annum to maintain all of the government stock?
I'm not sure how that would work, sir. And perhaps if Deputy Andrews would want to meet me afterwards and explain quite what he has in mind, I'd be happy to talk to him, but I don't quite see how that would function, sir.
Very well. We come to question 5. The Deputy Coles will ask the Minister for the Environment. Deputy.
Sir, the Minister is currently at his hospital appointment. And
then we'll put that to bas de la liste, as we say in another place. The next question is Deputy Southerns, who will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise whether the figures included in the proposed government plan 2024 to 27 under the references deep dive reviews, value for money targets, financial recovery programmes and efficiency savings are related to last year's public service cuts that were not delivered, and will she provide more detail on these areas to ensure some success in 2024?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Council of Ministers is committed to continuing to drive value for money in public services and delivering improved value per pound of taxpayers' money. This is an ongoing process and programme of work. It is important that targets are deliverable, and that is why the Council of Ministers are aiming for £10 million of savings in 2023. That's 1% out of an overall budget of £1 billion. It is proposed to set a further target for 2024, which equates to another £10 million, reflecting our commitment to ensure services embed a culture of continuing efficiency and improvement. This is a figure that we believe is achievable and is in addition to both the Value for Money programme, which we all agree general savings targets across all departments as part of our focus on continuous improvement in services, and separate initiatives such as the Health and Community Services Financial Recovery Plan, which seeks to make further savings.
Supplementary question, Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister accept that what we ended up with last year was salami slicing, random cuts here and there and everywhere just to save money? And is it not the risk that that is likely to happen again this year?
So last year, the programme was successful, saving 7 million out of the £10 million target. So every department, every public servant has a duty to ensure that they're continually offering the most efficient public services, and it is normal in every area of business to continue to seek value for money. A 1% target is perfectly reasonable and achievable.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, sir. We're almost towards the end of 2023, so can the Chief Minister confirm whether it is the projection that she's been given that by the end of this year, the government will have achieved every penny of the £10 million of value for money savings that were authorised in the 2023 government plan? And if not, why not?
So by the end of the year, I have committed to giving departments time to plan and prepare their savings initiatives ready for mobilisation and operation in future years. We've highlighted work that will be ongoing in the government plan, and we will endeavour to make sure that we will deliver balanced books at the end of this year.
Sir, a point of order. That wasn't close to an answer to my question. The Chief Minister specifically referred to future years. My question was about 2023.
And my answer was about 2023 too, sir.
It wasn't, not even close, sir, but I'll take a supplementary
If you move on to a supplementary, I think that would be helpful in the context of...
Thank you, sir. If the Chief Minister is not able to give a very straightforward answer as to whether the £10 million of savings that were allocated for this year have actually been made or will be made by the end of next month, how can we have any confidence that the £10 million allocated for next year will be achievable?
So with determination, clarity and focus, everything is achievable. It is important that we prioritise, and with the new leadership of our interim chief executive, I believe that a considerable amount of positive work is being done with chief officers and through departments that will deliver that.
Deputy Ward.
No, actually, so I don't have a question, thank you.
Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. Given the pressure on departments to make these savings, has the Council of Ministers identified services that are either over-resourced or non-essential in order to aid the departments make the savings?
So I think we said last year that we cannot continue to be what the interim chief executive has called, termed in a scrutiny hearing, an additive organisation, constantly growing budgets, rather than looking at where we can stop, where we can prioritise and where we can do things differently. This is in the 21st century. There are opportunities to harness technology, and as the Minister for Sustainable Economy has identified, by cutting through red tape, removing those barriers, such as barriers to business that have been identified, that we can find cohesive and coherent savings that can be of a benefit to the public purse.
Supplemental question, Deputy Felton.
Thank you. I don't think that was an answer to my first question, but I'll ask this as a supplementary. So has the Council of Ministers given departments, and this could be a yes or no answer, has the Council of Ministers given departments a list of services that it would like prioritised for either a reduction of resources or that it considers non-essential and should be cut or reduced?
Our focus now is delivering efficient services. Nobody wants to cut services. What we want to do is ensure that we are delivering value for money, efficient services for the public benefit.
Sir, could I raise a point of order, because that wasn't anything close to an answer?
I think the answer was directed to have indications being given by government to various departments as to the areas where those savings are anticipated. If it has, it has. If it hasn't, it hasn't, it seems to me. Yeah.
So I think I have been very clear that our emphasis and focus is on prioritisation and efficiency. It is, there is no list of services to be cut, because that is not our intention to cut services. It is our intention to deliver efficient, cost-effective, value-for-money services.
I have Deputy Tadier, then Deputy Scott, then final supplementary. Deputy Tadier.
Thanks, sir. I'm thinking of an analogy, which is if one were to go to a bank and say, could I have some money, please? Can I borrow some money? And they say, you can't afford it. And you say, don't worry, I'm going to be making efficiencies. I don't think they'd lend you the money. So can I ask the Chief Minister, is it reasonable to balance off current spending and growth projections that they have in the government plan against future, what I would call imaginary money that hasn't actually been achieved yet? Given the fact that if we as backbenchers want to put amendments into the government plan, we have to be very specific about where that money is coming from. And we can't simply say it's coming from the magic efficiency tree.
So I think that's slightly distasteful tone of the question, given that every single household in the island is tightening its belt. Whatever the circumstances of people in the island, we are all faced with increasing costs due to inflation. And therefore, we all have to keep focused on doing that very thing. As a government, I think it's important that we look to the next year with that commitment to delivering efficiency and delivering consistent and high-quality services, which is our commitment to the public.
I'll put it another way, sir, in the supplementary, and I don't think it's distasteful at all to ask that question. I think it's the opposite. Why is the Chief Minister effectively spending money in this government plan which she doesn't yet have? She's just hoping that magically some efficiencies might happen, which we know historically throughout various government plans, departments have been unable to deliver because actually, when push comes to shove, they are working more or less very efficiently.
The Deputy knows full well, sir, that as a government and under our public finances manual, it is absolutely essential that we deliver a balanced budget. Therefore, work has been done very carefully to ensure that the government plan projects a balanced budget for next year and the ongoing years. It is not an easy task, sir, when there's a continuous pressure to increase services and to add new things. The growth bids every year are excessive, and somebody somewhere has to decide which of those growth bids to accept and which to reject. And in order to be able to accept some of them, we have to be more efficient about the way we deliver the services that we are already offering to islanders. And we're doing that in really consistent and clear ways, such as the financial recovery plan in health and community services.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Whilst sharing Deputy Tadier's concerns that historically efficiencies often have impacted on frontline staff, could the Chief Minister please explain whether the value for money review extends in terms of finding efficiencies to modernising management techniques, bringing remuneration award schemes more in line with the private sector, reducing the size of golden handouts and increasing performance-related pay structures?
Thank you, sir. There's a performance management review that has been embedded across the services through the new IT project. And I think that's exactly an example of the request that the Deputy has made there. Performance management payments are, of course, a difficult thing in a public sector. So I would suggest that following private practices would be slightly difficult. But what we are focused on doing is improving the performance management of everybody across the public sector using the new system and ensuring that that is driving people's focus on efficiency and effectiveness.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
Yes, sir. Can the Chief Minister seriously look at businesses and the private sector in the eye who are actually having to tie in their own belts to manage their businesses efficiently, who have not been able to award pay of the size that we've actually seen in the public sector, have not been able to grow in the way at taxpayers' expense that the public sector has. And is she pursuing a more advanced structure in terms of remuneration, pay grades that actually reflect the realities of the economy of this island?
There's always work to be done, sir. However, obviously public sector pay has moved at a different rate to private sector pay. And I think, as I've outlined in previous answers, we are absolutely mindful of the impact on budgets, both in private households, in private business, and in the public service. It's part of a team effort across the island to combat inflation, to do our bit, to tighten our belts and ensure that we're being as effective and as efficient as we can be.
Final supplementary, Deputy Sultan.
Sir, does the Chief Minister not accept that her own advisers have warned against the inclusion of speculative savings in their projections? And yet, on page 56 of the plan, here we see the programme will deliver a recurring savings of 25 million by 2025, with £10 million delivered in 2024. Totally speculative, best guess, cross your fingers. Is it not the case?
I don't believe that is the case. I believe that we have a team of people who are focused and determined on delivering effective and efficient spending within the public service. It's a commitment, and if we did not put it in the budget, then it would be a dereliction of duty, because we would be failing to demonstrate that we had a commitment to tightening belts just like everyone else in the island.
Very well, we come to question 7 that Deputy Feltham will ask the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he has reviewed or will review the causes for the error rate on tax assessments, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I meet with the Controller of Revenue regularly to discuss the operational performance of Revenue Jersey, and I will continue to do so. We do review levels of error arising in the tax system every year, and I, of course, support Revenue Jersey's compliance programme, which is also published annually.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. Given that answer, is the Minister content with the current operational performance of Revenue Jersey?
So it's easy in this Assembly to criticise officials. I was quite clear when I stood for this position that one of the jobs that needed undertaking was support for Revenue Jersey to improve their customer service and how they were providing that service to islanders. We are in the middle of that programme. They are making good progress. Members will see from the FOI information that the level of errors in that particular part of the process is reducing, and we continue to make progress to ensure that they are, but more importantly, that we modernise our processes through things like online filing so that errors are manufactured out of the system before it even gets to the individual taxpayers. It's a work in progress, but progress is being made.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. It's good to hear the Minister supporting the staff in the Tax Department. Can I ask the Minister, sir, is he seeing a pattern in a decreasing number of errors? What type of error rate do we have as a percentage, if he has that, or has it levelled off? Thank you, sir.
As the Deputy will know from the FOI, of which there was great publicity recently in the JEP, and I understand that other media outlets are also trying to dig up stories in the same area. You'll see from the FOI that it is reducing, but I don't take that for granted. I continue to work with Revenue Jersey to ensure that they do have the support, that they are modernising their processes, but most importantly, as I say, that we're trying to engineer out the possibility of error, whether that's on individual taxpayers filling in their form, and members will know just that's not as straightforward as we would yet like it to be. So that's reducing error levels, but also communication with islanders to help them understand what allowances they are eligible for and what information they need to provide.
Yes, supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister to reassure members of tax-paying public that they should not expect to see any major changes as the year comes to the end, because the tax department is on top of it, and that they can be reassured that if they fill in their forms correctly, errors won't be made? Thank you, sir.
So it's a nice little trap that the Deputy would like me to fall into. Of course, he knows there's two elements to errors. There can be a miscompletion of a tax return, and there also can be internal errors within the department of transposition of numbers and all sorts of things, as you would have in any organisation that was dealing with numbers. So my priority is twofold. One is, as I've said, trying to engineer out the ability for errors when tax returns are being made. Secondly, there is a stream of education and training within the department to make sure that there aren't those type of transposition errors or departmental errors as well, which leads to an undermining of the, in the public's mind, of Revenue Jersey. They are making progress, they're doing a good job, but there's more to do.
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. I'm extremely supportive of the staff in the department who have always been extremely helpful whenever I've contacted them with constituency issues. Can the Minister outline exactly what tangible things have been put in place since his election to Minister, to apart from online filing, which he's mentioned, to facilitate things for the public? Thank you, sir.
So I don't like to be boring in question time, because I know there's a great element of theatre, but the reality is that this is quite a boring subject. One of the things that we've done is greying out elements of the return so that islanders don't put in the pence. What we can't then do, of course, is count for islanders who put the pence in the pound boxes. And that obviously leads to all sorts of areas, but we've done that. We've also done more publicity. I've got some here, sir, but we've had complaints about the quality of the television, so I won't hold them up for islanders to see. But it's an ongoing programme of communication and trying to engineer out in the system. I understand for some islanders, they are concerned about the EID for online filing. That is also something that we've been trying to work with across government on ironing out that, because once that's done, then the online filing is by far and best the way to avoid errors within the system.
Supplemental question, Deputy Alves.
Yes, please, sir. Can the Minister outline or if there's been anything done through a more like diversity and inclusion lens, for example, making the actual form more accessible, more readable, or even changes in language, for example, if there's been any work done around that? Thank you, sir.
That's a good question to which I don't have the answer. I do know that I have individuals in the department whose job it is to be mindful of those issues and to think about language. Certainly language is thought of when it comes to communication. Whether it's actually thought of because the return is based on the legislation and therefore the language is really driven by the legislation, but it is something that I will take back and see if changes can be made also to the language in the return. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. Given the effect on the individuals involved when through whichever means the assessment may be incorrect, and also the possible effect on public finances of incorrect assessments on the anticipated revenue. Could the Minister give us assurance that he feels that the department is adequately resourced in order to provide the types of services and the expected level of service that the Assembly and the public might expect? And if he doesn't feel it's adequately resourced, what is he doing to remedy that?
So I always work with my officials to ensure that we are seeking to deliver best value for money in the way that the Chief Minister just indicated in her answer some moments ago. Members will be aware that there is a part of the government plan to further support Revenue Jersey in providing customer service and compliance work, and I hope that members will support that. We shouldn't draw from this fact, sir, that if we take the FOI question, that government revenues are less than forecast because of this process. That's not the case. That's not how we forecast income into the department, and therefore it doesn't affect that forecast. That's driven by other things.
Well, we now come to question 8. The Deputy Tanya will ask for the Minister of the Environment. I think, Deputy Joan, you're answering, are you? Deputy Tanya.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether there is any requirement for government to ensure that listed buildings located in prominent public areas are maintained, and if there is, how is this enforced?
I thank the Deputy for his question. The listing of a building or place does not impose any requirement on the government or the owner of the land or the building to maintain it. Listing simply recognises that a building or place has some public importance by reason of its special archaeological, architectural, artistic, cultural or historical interest, and provides greater control over operations which might affect the special interest of that site.
Supplemental question, David?
Thank you. I think the Minister's given a strictly legal answer, but of course, if we think about it, it doesn't actually make any sense logically. Why would we ask people to list their buildings if actually we don't want to protect those buildings as sites of special interest? I can think of many, and the Odeon Cinema is the one that sticks out in my mind. Does the Minister agree that although there may not be a legal requirement, there are levers in the 2002 planning law? So Article 56, which says that the Minister may make a grant or a loan to make funds available to the owner of an occupied property of a listed building to make sure that it is preserved in the public interest, but also that Article 84 gives the Chief Officer permission or power for any building that he or she considers to be in a ruinous or dilapidated condition, that the department can serve a notice requiring the building to be demolished, repaired, decorated or otherwise improved. Does the Minister acknowledge that?
Thank you, Deputy. So as the Deputy has outlined, there are powers in the planning and building law, especially under Chapter 6, to compel the repair of dilapidated or ruinous buildings. This includes listed buildings, but the threshold for such action is very high and the powers are draconian. And so the start of the work that the officers do is persuasive compliance, which is the first port of call and doesn't go straight to legal action. Thank you.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The Assistant Minister referred to persuasive compliance and the less persuasive requirements being draconian. Could she give any examples of any times in recent years where either of those methods has been adopted to improve the state of a listed building in Jersey?
Thank you, Deputy, for your answer. And I'm afraid I wouldn't be unable to give you exact examples, and I'd be able to come back to you, of course, with examples. But the work that is carrying on at the moment, for example, there's work on a heritage at risk register, and this is underway, and it may lead to laws that can provide greater protection with a more nuanced approach than the current planning and building law, which has this draconian law.
Supplemental question, Deputy Mezek.
And from what the Assistant Minister has just said, could she provide more detail at precisely what they would be looking at?
We would be happy to have a meeting to discuss this issues in more detail, and as the register is developed, to share that with the Assembly.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Given the Assistant Minister's reply, perhaps you could explain why the draft, the P.85 2003, the draft Planning and Building Conservation Areas Jersey regulations that are to be debated by the States Assembly today are considered necessary, given the fact that funds can be given towards the conservation of buildings.
Thank the Deputy for the answer. So that there is, under Article 56 of the Planning and Building Law, there is a fund could be made available for special sites of special interest. This includes listed buildings, and this allows the Minister to be able to provide grants or loans towards necessary costs around protect, repair or restore listed buildings in place. This is a discretionary power, but it is something that was a grant scheme was there from and operated between 1995 until 2010. But this fund has not been replenished since 2010. And at the moment in the Historic Environment team, there is not the level of resources able to operate such a scheme at present.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott?
No, thank you.
Connie St Martin?
Thank you. I'd like to ask the Assistant Minister whether, if there is a special fund for the preservation of listed buildings, whether that could please include the iconic and historic listed buildings, the 12 parish churches, which is a huge drain on the resources of parishes. Thank you.
Thank Sir Conatab for her question. There is, of course, a special article in the Planning and Building Law for a fund. As I mentioned, that since 2010, this fund has not had any funding in it, and so there has not been able to, to do this further. But of course, as part of the discussion around the heritage, the risk and register, heritage at risk register, this kind of discussion can add further into that as well, including the churches.
Supplemental question, Connie
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister agree with me that without a properly constituted fund, without a significant amount of money, that many important and listed buildings on the island will continue to fall into disrepair because the owners simply don't have the cash to invest in them?
Thank you, Deputy, for his question. As the work is undergoing around the Heritage at Risk Register, this kind of work will be able to identify where the most at risk are, and then, of course, the work can then be discussed about the appropriate approach to that, whether that is to develop further laws to compel landowners to do such maintenance, or for a fund to be replenished in such a way. But at the moment, that work is undergoing, and as I said, we'll be very happy to share that with the Assembly when there are further plans to be able to share. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. If I heard the Assistant Minister correctly, she's going to compel people to do work on their property when they have no money so to do. Can she explain how that works, please?
As I said before, the Planning and Building Law has a number of articles under Chapter 6 which would compel landowners to repair dilapidated or ruinous buildings. Of course, as I mentioned before in another answer, these are draconian ways to do that, and officers and the Minister are very keen to have persuasive compliance first. And of course, within the discussions around Heritage and Risk Register and focusing in on where the areas are most at risk, whether that is building or land areas, that will of course discuss how to do that with landowners. That could include, of course, a replenishment of such a fund that is already available under the law but has not been replenished for a number of years.
Final supplementary, Deputy Tallier.
Thanks, sir. I don't accept that the laws are draconian, and I would be interested to find out what other methods, the persuasive methods, have been used up until now, sir. I've been in the Odeon building, for example, as part of the Festival of Words, and it has to be said that the owners of that building do have enough money to do the inside of the building up to a very high standard, and it's a beautiful building, beautifully restored inside, but it seems that unless they get a tap on the shoulder from the Minister, referring them to the law, Article 84, or indeed Article 56 and saying, would you consider please doing the outside of the building up? Because it is a public building in the centre of town next to a new hotel and next to the town park.
Could you reach the question, please?
So that is the question. So
I'm sorry, I haven't heard a question yet, Deputy. We do have to get there.
I'm sure we'll still be within the 2-hour limit for questions, sir, but I will...
I know, but I'm not intending to allow you the full 2 hours, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. All right. Okay, sir. Notwithstanding that, I think this interaction has probably taken more time than my question, and I may have lost my train of thought.
Well, I'm not sure that that's a helpful
I will
objection.
ask.
Please do ask the question.
Thank you, sir. I'm minded I'm also supposed to sit down when you're talking to me, sir.
No, that's
Please
perfectly all
don't.
right. But if you
So
ask
given the fact that buildings like the Odeon Cinema, which are severely dilapidated on the outside, are in such prominent political, physical positions in St Helier, would the Assistant Minister consider using some of the powers, the carrot of Article 56 and the stick of Article 84 of the law, to approach the owners of such buildings to see if they might possibly please do up their buildings?
Listen.
Thank the Deputy for his question in there. Why hasn't, I believe the question was why hasn't more been done? And the point is that the law, and why I say it's draconian, is because the bar is extremely high, and it's only being able to intervene on extreme circumstances, and there are limited resources to pursue also, of course, the work of persuasive compliance. And so there has to be a balance there, and the work that is doing on the Heritage at Risk Register, as well as the work that we're supporting the vacant homes work as well, because many of those sites identified are also listed in the historic buildings. Those kind of works will be able to try to persuade landowners to make those changes, and that's. But I've answered the other questions in that question. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. We come to question 9 that the Connétable St Martin will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. I believe the Assistant Minister is answering this question.
Very well.
Thank you. In relation to the UK Online Safety Act, and in light of this government's decisions to decline the permissive extent clause, will the Assistant Minister advise what discussions, if any, are taking place between the government and the UK government to provide similar protection to islanders, including the online regulation of the largest and highest risk services and offences?
Thank you, sir. Discussions with the UK have been limited to the original decision as to whether or not to include a PEC or permissive extent clause in the ASEAN Online Safety Bill. We are working closely with Justice and Home Affairs to ensure new and relevant criminal offences, such as those contained in the UK bill, are in our legislation, and we will do so with such amendments alongside any recommendations being adopted and followed from the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force report.
Supplemental question, Connétable.
Thank you. I think the Assistant Minister's answered me quite well. It's just the permissive extent clause would enable the relevant provisions of the bill to be extended to Jersey, and should the states decide this is desirable in future. And I'm pleased to hear what the Assistant Minister has said, but I'd just like him to assure the Assembly that Jersey does not fall behind Guernsey, the UK or the EU.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Contab for a question and for highlighting that actually the UK is not the only place that is legislating and regulating in this area. So I can confirm that the team is looking into the area of regulation as well as criminal offence. This is an area which is rapidly evolving, and at the time of the offering of a permissive extent clause, both the Minister and I, on advice and consultation with law officers, felt the correct decision was not to include one. That is not to say we are not actively pursuing investigations into both the criminal and regulatory side, looking at both what the UK is implementing at the EU and further afield to make sure we've got the right regulation for island citizens.
Very well. We come to question 10. The Deputy Mesiac will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what action, if any, is being taken to support Jersey's farmers while the abattoir remains closed?
So it's a slightly more tricky question than it may seem. What action's been taken to support Jersey farmers whilst the abattoir is closed? Well, whilst it's closed, the only support that can be given, I would suggest, would be of a financial nature,
by way of subsidising feedstuffs for the continued weeks that animals have to be maintained before the abattoir is open. And strictly speaking, that sort of support that question would then need to be addressed to the Minister for Economic Development, because that's where the rural economy team sits. But if Deputy Mezek would like to know more about the sort of the physical things that we're doing to try and reopen the abattoir, I'd be quite happy to take supplementary questions on that basis.
A supplementary question, Deputy Mezek?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for his answer. Of course, these issues are interconnected, and in determining how much financial support would have to be provided, they'd have to know what the timescale is for getting an abattoir up and running again. So could I ask the Minister, therefore, if he has involved himself in any of those conversations so that both of these aspects are taken care of adequately to ensure that Jersey's farmers are supported?
Yes, sir, I can confirm that I've been quite actively involved in this. A lot of efforts have been made to reopen the abattoir as quickly as possible. We have to bear in mind that the roof of the abattoir is asbestos. 25% of it needs to be replaced. Some holes were torn in the roof. The slaughtering area, which is a food safe area, was badly affected by asbestos, and all the electrics were affected by water. So the first thing to do is get a new roof on it, or replace the sheets that have been broken, then attend to the asbestos through having a deep clean process, then attending to the electrics. So contrary to what's been said on social media, sir, a huge amount of effort has been made to coordinate that, and that all takes time. And there's other difficulties that relate to that. There's a shortage of scaffolding, sir, because given the events of last month, scaffolding is being used everywhere. So all of those things are now in place, where in the meantime we tried to organise to import a mobile unit, and without going into too much detail, that wouldn't have arrived until after the abattoir could be reopened. We've also investigated sending live animals to Guernsey, and that's complicated too. They can only take some types of animal, and that couldn't be till after the intended reopening date of the abattoir. So we're hoping to get everything done by the 10th of December. We're doing all we can to bring that forward. We believe there are about 60 animals that will be requiring slaughter at that time. The staff have agreed to work overtime, and we think that'll take about a week's work. In closing, sir, I would just say that a great deal of sympathy for people that have been affected, but I would just remind the Deputy that these are meat suppliers are commercial businesses, and I was involved in that line of work for quite some time, and we always tried our best to have business interruption insurance, and I think that's quite an important point to make, sir. Thank you.
Colin Thompson-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister be able to tell members what the implications on the abattoir staff might be of the disruption? Are they employed directly? Are they contracted staff? Perhaps you could clear that up, thank you, sir. That's a slightly awkward question, sir. I'm not entirely sure how they're employed. I believe that they are employed directly, and they've agreed to work consistently. They normally only slaughter 1 day a week, but I think they're going to work consecutive days in order to clear the backlog.
Supplemental question, Colin Thompson?
So my concern was whether they are being affected in a detrimental way by the closure of the abattoir, and perhaps the Minister would confirm that that's not the case. Thank you, sir. I don't believe that to be the case, sir. I don't think they're affected in any way of that sort, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Mezek. Come now to question 11, that Deputy Southern will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what evidence she has used to support the use of sanctions in the welfare system to help get claimants back to work? And will she detail the training that her department support workers receive to help return claimants to the work?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. The question has two parts, so I'll deal with the first one. The evidence I have is that the current system is working well. Jersey enjoys a very low level of unemployment, with those job seekers who claim income support being actively supported by the Back to Work teams. It is a condition of claiming income support that people who are able to work are either in work already or that they will be expected to look for work. Work conditions don't apply to people with caring responsibilities or significant health conditions. The requirement to look for work is a feature of most tax-funded benefit systems and has strong public support. As well as providing incentives for those who do find work, there are a range of sanctions in the Jersey system for those who claim benefits but do not take reasonable steps to find work. As regards training, on joining back to work, new advisors are allocated an experienced officer to partner with, and they work through a comprehensive checklist of all the role entails. There is classroom training on the relevant legislation and decision making. Advisors also undertake safeguarding training, customer service training, and mental health first aid training. After this training period, they continue to work alongside their appointed experienced officer on a mentoring basis before they undertake the role unaccompanied. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Sir, does the Minister consider that there is scope in her system for increased sanctions to operate as has been taken in the UK by the UK government?
Sir, I haven't followed closely the proposed changes in the UK. The Jersey system is completely different. I have no plans to change our system in the same way.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, does the Minister track sanctions that are made for people who are working and leave a job for reasons of health, which may not be evidenced at the time? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I believe if someone leaves a job for health reasons, they won't be subject to sanctions. I think when someone just throws in the towel on a job, then they may be subject to a period of sanctions. I'm afraid that's a very technical, detailed question. If someone becomes ill afterwards, I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure that will be dealt with by officers.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, thank you, sir. Given that the increased awareness of mental health conditions, thankfully, in our society, sometimes could the Minister accept that people may leave a job and not really be in a position to explain why? So therefore, can I ask the Minister whether she would be happy to look back on such cases and review the reasons why sanctions were applied and perhaps then change those payments that have been made? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I think that's quite difficult. I think to look at things retrospectively are also going to be challenged. I'm not sure if the Deputy is suggesting we look at every single case where someone has been sanctioned for giving up work to check whether there was a mental health aspect. I'd imagine if we did, we would need some kind of medical evidence that there was a mental health issue to support that, and that we wouldn't just simply take someone's word for it, because anybody could say they were leaving work because it was impacting their mental health, whether that was true or not. I think that's a very difficult area. Thank you.
So, sorry, that wasn't quite the question. I was saying the situation where people aren't in a situation at that time, and then retrospectively, if they can say that that was the reasons, will they be looked back on? That was the question. I think it was a slightly, dare I say, the answer was put to my question that wasn't set. Again, it seems to be happening a lot, so.
Are you able to focus?
Sir, I'm sorry, but I'm struggling to understand the question. If the question is that someone leaves a job, they are given sanctions, and 6 months later they decide that they left the job because they were having a mental health crisis, that's a very difficult thing for us to assess. That person would have to come forward and explain that to us, but I'm not sure that I can do any kind of proactive review without people coming forward. Thank you.
So the question was whether the Minister would be willing to look back on such cases, or whether the Department looks back on such cases, given the nature of mental health issues.
Well, I think the Minister's answer was that she would, correct me if I'm wrong, Minister, that yes, it's something that can be looked at if an individual comes back and raises an issue. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, exactly. That's what I said. If someone comes and asks us, I'm sure we will look at it.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister indicate for the Assembly how many income support claimants are currently subjected to a sanction?
Sir, I don't have a number as at today, but I do know that in this year, 75 financial penalties have been applied. 47 have seen some removal of the adult component only for a period of only 14 days, and only six have resulted in the closure of an income support claim. There are over 600 people, income support claimants, currently registered as actively seeking work, and there will be many more than 600 will have engaged with Back to Work over the course of the year. So there are small numbers of people who are subject to sanctions, and those sanctions are only applied in appropriate circumstances.
Yes, supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. And can the Minister tell us, of those who have been sanctioned, how many of those attributable to that sanction ended up finding work as a result of it?
I don't know, sir. So the whole point of actively seeking work is that people are supported to return to work where they can. If someone has had a sanction, it's because they are not actively seeking work, they are not turning up to interviews, or they are not attending work on a reasonable basis. But the team have a very high success rate in finding people work, and there are numerous methods they use to do that. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Suffolk.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister pay attention? What attention will the Minister pay to recommendation 22 of the review of income support benefits over payments? The Minister of Social Security must look to introduce mandatory training on learning difficulties for all staff who are directly involved in income support processes, and expanding further, the Minister for Social Security should ensure that unconscious bias training is introduced and delivered to all customer-facing staff within the customer and local services.
I'm not sure that's entirely supplemental, sir, because the review panel was looking at overpayments and not sanctions. Our response to that is all our staff are given extensive training, and we constantly monitor the need for training. And if the department feel that the type of training the Deputy mentioned is required for the actively seeking work team, then I'm sure they will be included in all new training initiatives.
Very well, we come now to question 12. The Deputy Rob Orb will ask of the Minister for Children and Education. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I wasn't concentrating then. So can I ask the Minister, will the Minister advise how the educational reform allowance included in the offer accepted by head teachers will affect the educational reform programme? Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy, for Deputy's question. Sir, the education reform allowance will support and enable the progress of the education reform programme through additional time and input from school leaders. I'm confident that this allowance and the increased commitment of school leaders will have a positive impact on the education reform programme.
Sorry, sir. Can I just check with the Minister? So the money put aside for the 2.4% pay increase given to head teachers after their rejection of the £1,000 is from the education reform programme. So does that mean that the education reform programme will now have less money to implement what you've talked about or not? Thank you, sir.
First of all, sir, I would like to correct two statements that are incorrect. It was never percentage in the agreement. Second, the payment connected to the size of the school and the leadership scale, and to input of the extra days outside of the term's time. So outside of the term's time, the deputy head teachers and head teachers would do between 10 to 15 extra days outside of the term's time, and this is how the reward would be calculated. And outside of the term's time, head teachers and deputy head teachers would need to develop several things to make sure that education reform would go forward.
Well, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister explain how an increase in remuneration to attempt to do something to catch up for the degradation in pay that this profession has faced in recent years meets the definition of a reform?
What's really important to understand that the demands and from the education changed over the years. We are working, and I started to work last year together with the head teachers to allow more autonomy of school, which obviously will require more time and input from the head teachers. I have been proposed and accepted the Professional Education and Advisor Oversight Forum, the forum that should constitute formally aligned to the Curriculum Council, and it will be an environment that will ensure that oversight and assurance to deliver of ministerial and delivery plans. So we do need this forum, and it will require input from the head teachers. I need that school leaders will support development of the strategic plan for education, which clearly outline demand and capacity, demographic requirements, future catchment arrangement, selective education review, inclusion and standard development. We are on the inclusion journey, and it's not an easy journey. It's new for everyone, and head teachers need to create a working environment within the school which will deliver inclusive education with all challenges that we are facing. Head teachers will increase their non-term working time from 15 up to 30 days, which will depend on the school environment, which recognize variation in the scale and the size of the school. This memorandum of understanding, we are not talking about 30 days. It was very clear between 10 to 15 days. But this is agreement only for a year once we are reviewing their terms and conditions. Once review of the terms and conditions will finish, this will be included in updated pay for the teachers, but it's not through the SEB, it's through the department and SEB together, depends on the requirements that we have.
A supplementary question.
I'll give it a go, sir. I don't think the initial question was answered. I'm asking the Minister if she can explain how an increase in remuneration meets the definition of reform. Because if we're talking about an educational reform programme, that sounds to me like it's meant to be about the way education is delivered and not the remuneration package of the people who deliver that education. That's a matter to be considered alongside cost of living implications, not the model of education that's delivered to children. So why would those two things be connected if remuneration is not part of that definition?
I think I answered the previous State Assembly. There are two parts to the negotiations. One part, it's the pay. It's 7.9%, and it's going through SEB. The second part, it's the delivery of education reform, when head teachers and the deputy head teachers are held accountable for performance, quality standard, revised school standard, revised frameworks, changes that needs to be done in school, followed by the policies from the department. And what head teachers will be paid from the department, from the education reform, will meet what we are require them to do outside of the previous scope of the definition. So this is why we have terms and conditions review that will update what head teachers are required to do in 2023 and in the future.
Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to place a bit of context around this, and I wondered if the Minister could advise the Assembly and just refresh our memories about what the purpose of the education reform programme is and the anticipated outcomes will be at the end of the programme.
There are several parts for the education reform, and the education reform is at present we have faced an increasing complexity in demand, particularly in secondary education, against reducing demographics, demand low base. We have complexity around various needs and diversity that we are having at schools. We believe that clear opportunity to redesign the education system so we can offer excellence in education while recognizing choice and ensuring that the standards are reflective of the island needs.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for her answer there. I think it's useful for us to have that context. I'm aware that the Education Reform Programme has been ongoing for several years, so could the Minister just update us on where she's at with that particular programme and what the overall budget for that programme is?
In the previous government plan of 2023 and for the next 3 years, I do have 6.1 at least for this year, and I have just above 6 million for the next year when we are concentrating on inclusion. So once we redesign the school system and delivery to meet needs of the children that previously wouldn't go to the school, they would go to specialist school, but we are trying to make sure that the children and young people are included in the mainstream education, which require extra support and different curriculum and different system working within the school. And this is how 6 million will be spent. 80% of the 6.1 million spent in the school budget, and 20% it's around recruitment, training, professional development and central team which doing outreach work.
Deputy Rob Ward, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let me word this really carefully. The head teachers accepted an additional 2.5% as a pay rise backdated to January. That came from the Education Reform Programme. Why is that money not available for all teachers, or has the reports of that basically been wrong and that's not what teachers say? Or can the Minister confirm head teachers have not received that extra pay rise?
Head teachers received between 2,000 to 3,000, depends on the size of the school, depends on the day that they need to give outside of the term time, and depends on their pay scale. We never ever talked about 2.5%. I have no idea, sir, where this number came from. On top of this, teachers were offered £1,000, which I'm really disappointed that this offer never been put to ballot to the teachers for them to decide if they would like to accept this offer or not.
Well, we come now to question 13. The Deputy Andrews will ask for the Minister of Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state the number of cases since 2018 of female police officers who have been assaulted while on duty, broken down by incidents of verbal, physical and sexual assault?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. During this time period, there have been 43 incidences of female officers being subject to assaults. Nearly all of these relate to the offences of assaulting a police officer in the lawful execution of their duty. Since 2018, there have been 14 recorded instances of female officers being sexually assaulted. And these are all nearly in relation to sexual touching offences.
No supplementary then? Very well. That brings us on to question 14. The Deputy Messick will ask of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state whether she accepts all of the recommendations from the report by the Task Force on Violence Against Women and Girls? And if she does, will she advise when the government intends to publish a timetable for the implementation of those recommendations?
I thank the Deputy for his question. And I'd like to start by commending the work of the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force, who've worked with energy and dedication to deliver the report. I'm sure members would wish to join me in expressing this Assembly's gratitude for that work, which will not always have been easy. And I urge those members who may not have done so to read the full report. As the Deputy will be aware, the report is an incredibly detailed piece of work comprising over 300 pages and many references, which makes 77 recommendations on action to address violence against women and girls on the island. I have therefore committed to giving each recommendation very careful consideration before responding. 39 of the recommendations pertain to government and will require action across a number of ministerial portfolios. The remaining recommendations will require action from external stakeholders, including the Attorney General, the courts, and other specialist support services. Work is already underway to establish which of the recommendations could be implemented in the short term and to establish who has ownership of each recommendation. I expect to provide a substantive reply early in the new year, and this response will make clear which recommendations will be taken forward and a timetable for their implementation.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. And I share the Minister's view on the work that was conducted in this extremely important piece of work, and I hope that I hope the momentum is kept up after its publication. So of the recommendations made in this report, some get at much deep-rooted issues that will take a long time to deal with, but there are some in there that may well be able to be dealt with in the short term, things like improving lighting in parts of town or providing training for people who work closely with victims and survivors. Could I ask the Minister if anything has been done thus far to analyse which those recommendations could be proceeded with in a relatively short-term basis?
I thank the Minister for his question. When it comes to, I'm sorry, the Minister, sorry, the Deputy for his question. When it comes to infrastructure issues, those will be timetabled for discussion with the Infrastructure Minister. And again, a lot of these recommendations require really careful consideration. A lot of them involve multiple partners, and it's very important that we take the time to understand the roles and responsibilities of each of these agencies and how they intersect with each other to deliver the best possible outcomes for women in Jersey.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. I will also start by commending the work done on the report of violence, of the Task Force for Violence Against Women and Girls. What I want to ask is the funding allocated for the work of the task force, was it intended just for the research report and recommendations or for working on any actions of the findings as well?
I thank the Deputy for her question. The money was allocated initially following Conatub's Shenton Stone's proposition for the actual composition and the report of the task force. I am very happy to confirm that money has been found and sufficient funding to take forward the recommendations.
Supplemental question.
Yes, thank you. As the 200,000 budget allocated that the Minister mentioned was based on the amendment brought by Constable Sharon Stone, was also stating that is meant to develop and propose changes in policy, strategy and culture in this area. Have any of these policies already been implemented within that budget?
The focus of the budget was to bring the task force together and to fund the development work around the task force. Pieces of action that have come out of the task force have been already fed into policy officers, and there is a general understanding of the importance of focusing on VOG in all the work that we do. So, for example, I lodged last week the public order law, which has elements in there that will directly affect VOG. So the money that that Conatab Shenton Stone secured was for the formulation of the task force.
The final supplementary, Deputy Meze.
Thank you, sir. Appreciating that the Minister will be coming back in the new year with a full response to the report and that timetable for implementation. Based on what analysis she's done at this point, is she able to indicate if there are any recommendations in there which she thinks may transpire to be particularly difficult to implement, and would she want to take the opportunity now to highlight what those may be to help brief States members on the work that may be needed to be done to overcome that difficulty?
I thank the Deputy for his question. As I said originally, a report of this nature and depth requires proper and thoughtful consideration. It extends across every agency and every institution of our island, and I think when people take the time to read the full report and understand, I don't envisage that there will be too much challenge to implementing some of the recommendations.
Very well, we return now to question 5. The Deputy Coles will ask of the Minister for the Environment, who's returned to the Assembly. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise if all proposed new building developments will only receive planning and building permission if all toilets and bathrooms meet the minimum requirements set out in Building Bylaws, Jersey Law 2007, Technical Guidance Document Part 8, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his indulgence in waiting for me to return. So the requirements for planning permission and building permission are different. From a planning perspective, there are no technical minimum requirements for toilets and bathrooms. This is just a building bylaws matter, building bylaws regulation, outlined, as Deputy Coles said, in the Technical Guidance Document Part 8. The law states that reasonable provision must be made, and what is considered reasonable is assessed on a case-by-case basis. Technical guidance documents provide guidance on a number of the most common situations found in terms of toilets and bathrooms, but there may be more than one solution that may be acceptable. There is the opportunity, for instance, to submit an access statement setting out the approach to inclusive design that will allow the Building Standards team to advise regarding the acceptability of a specific solution and whether it complies with the building bylaws in instance where the technical guidance hasn't been followed.
Supplementary question, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. The new supplementary planning guidance allows for the smaller units of 1 bedroom, 1 person apartments to have a shower room which can be 2 square metres smaller than the required bathroom size. How does this work in relation to accessibility for those who might have mobility issues?
So the supplementary planning guidance is the planning guidance for applications. It is not the building bylaws. The aim with the supplementary planning guidance was to ensure that we had a full range of accommodation types available in the island. And the guidance in terms of the bathrooms and shower rooms is minimum standards, and can be varied according to what the developer feels is necessary for that accommodation that he is building.
Very well, that brings questions to an end. And we now move to questions without notice. And the first period of questions is for the Minister for Social Security, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel, in their recent report on overpayments, recommended that in situations where home visits have to be conducted with claimants who are potentially vulnerable and are female, that the officer that conducts that home visit should be a woman, if at all possible. The Minister has outlined that she's rejected this application. This recommendation? Could she explain why?
Thank you, sir. I think it's difficult to do any recruitment on the basis of gender. Well, however, we will take into account when home visits are conducted the appropriate gender and nature of officers that are being sent to the visit.
Supplementary question.
And so is this already being done, and is it the case that potentially vulnerable women who may have faced some of the issues before that we've just been discussing in response to the Task Force on Violence Against Women and Girls report, are there instances now where those people are being faced for a home visit where they are by themselves with their circumstances not being taken into account?
So I think home visits are relatively rare. I don't believe they happen very often. We will sometimes have home visits at the request of the claimant where that suits them. And the idea that officers are routinely turning up on people's doorsteps unannounced, I think is overemphasised. But we certainly will take into account the nature of a claimant's needs when we allocate officers to do the visit.
Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. In the Minister's answer to my written question 357, 2023, she listed areas that were identified for high-level review by her department, and one of those was the home carers allowance rules for parents with more than one child with a long-term health condition. Please, could she provide an update as to any actions that have arisen from that?
Sir, I can assure the Deputy no one is more frustrated than I am about this. We have discussed this again relatively recently. That position will be introduced immediately on a basis of ministerial discretion, pending regulation or the appropriate orders being put into place early next year.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. If that is the case, could the Minister enlighten the Assembly as to what the new rules will be?
So, as previously discussed, we're still working through detail, but the rationale is that a family with one child with level 3 currently receives home carers allowance. There may be circumstances where a family has 2 children who are level 1 or level 2 and or level 2. We recognise that the work of caring for 2 children with health needs may be as significant as caring for 1 child, and we will be bringing forward legislation to clarify that. But in the meantime, where those situations exist, we are certainly very open to ensuring that a family will receive home carers allowance if there are 2 children with health conditions that require sufficient degrees of care.
Colin Thompson-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. The Minister will be aware that the method of paying quarterly social security returns has changed to a monthly arrangement. Is she satisfied that that rollout is working as planned?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, I thank the Constable for his question. I believe that is working well. There is now a combined return. Employers now, I believe, do a monthly combined return, which covers ITIS contributions, social security contributions, and the general manpower return. That is facilitating. It is easier for employees if there is no change. They can simply press a button saying same as last time. So I think the collection of returns where it's done properly is working well. I think there will always be issues where people simply don't submit returns, but that is something that is receiving attention. Thank you.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir. I'm advised that whilst ITIS returns, which is the Deputy's responsibility with a different hat, can be collected by direct debit, Social Security ones can't at the moment. Is that the case, and will the Minister address that particular issue? Thank you, sir.
So I don't believe that to be the case. That hasn't been drawn to my attention previously, and I know that I personally have paid social security contributions by direct debit in the past, so I'm sure that facility does exist. If there's a specific issue, if you'd like to raise it with me separately.
Deputy Messick.
Thank you, sir. On multiple occasions as a constituency representative, I've worked with constituents when we have been able to prove that an overpayment that they were given was not their fault, but in fact the fault of the department, and after challenging the decision to claim money back from them, managed to get it overturned because it wasn't their fault and they had acted in good faith. Given the Minister's response to the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel's review on overpayments and their recommendation that overpayments which are the fault of the department rather than the claimant should be written off, is it now the case that she has changed the policy in the department, so even those who do successfully challenge with the help of a States member will not get those overpayments written off?
No, sir, I don't believe there has been any change. I think it has always been open to either me as Minister or officers to write off overpayments in appropriate circumstances. That was discussed with the panel. There has been no change. I think in appropriate cases, whether or not someone is represented, we can make decisions to write off an overpayment. Those are considered on a case-by-case basis. And I think to create a blanket policy, as the panel has suggested, of writing off all overpayments caused by mistake is not acceptable.
Supplementary question to that, Deputy?
Well, sir, how are we meant to understand that complete inconsistency, that if an overpayment is discovered that was not the claimant's fault and where they had acted in good faith and tried to do the right thing, that in some cases they'll get it written off and in some cases they won't because it's not appropriate to apply a blanket approach? So does she not consider that to be completely inconsistent and leaves it at the risk that claimants will give up as they try and complain, even if they are in the right, because they'll be faced with the obstacle of having to go through quite a bureaucratic system, sometimes alone without the support of people to help them manoeuvre through it?
Sir, no, I don't think it's inconsistent. As I said, these decisions are made on a strictly case-by-case basis. There may be extreme circumstances where it is appropriate to write off, and there will be other cases where it simply isn't. But we cannot have the blanket provision under income support law is if someone receives money to which they are not entitled, they will be asked to pay that money back, regardless of the circumstances. That is a basic issue, that is a basic position, and writing off of overpayments will be made on case-by-case circumstances where it's entirely appropriate to do so, depending on the circumstances of the claimant and all the circumstances of the overpayment. People do have the ability to raise appeals with the department against the elements of the decision-making, and they are also advised of their ability to do that. Thank you.
Nobody else has asked, so third question, Deputy Mezek.
I'm happy to take the rest of the time, sir, on this, and in the hope that we might get a consistent answer from the Minister on this. So if it is the case that claimants who are paid money that they're not entitled to should not be able to keep it and should be required to pay it back, but they'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis dependent on the circumstances, how is that anything if not an inconsistent position that will depend entirely on a claimant's will to challenge something given the circumstances they may face?
So the Deputy's question overlooks the fact that there are times that decisions are made on the basis of compassion and the needs of the person involved. And there will be cases where it's appropriate to do so, and there will be cases that it isn't. In any event, where someone has had money to which they are not entitled, it is fair. For example, let's say I lend Deputy Ferry £10, and he says he will return the money to my bank account. When he's doing so, he's distracted and he pays me £100 by mistake. I don't realise. I look at my bank balance and think, oh, I'm better off this month, I'll go and buy new shoes. If Deputy Ferry then comes to me and says, can I have my £90 back, would anybody consider it to be fair for me to say, well, no, you can't because you've spent it and it was your mistake, therefore I'm keeping it? That is exactly the principle that applies. I have had a benefit to which I'm not entitled by virtue of Deputy Ferry's mistake, and it is entirely appropriate that I would repay him the money he has given to me in error. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. And what an atrocious and distasteful comparison there when we're talking about people who act in good faith and who take the advice of the department when they receive what they honestly believe they're entitled to through no mistake of their own. So would the Minister agree that a more compassionate approach is required, not one that is inconsistent, and where people who have acted in good faith and who accepted the greater expertise of the people who run the system rather than themselves, that it is not fair to then seek to punish them to the point where we might even be pushing them into poverty to do so to claim that money back, and that rather than force people to have to muster up the will, sometimes in extremely adverse circumstances, to fight against unfair rulings, that she should say that when the department makes a mistake, it should say sorry and try to fix it.
So there's quite a lot in that. I think that was, again, going beyond a question. And in fact, I've slightly lost the thread. There was so much in it. I'm not quite sure what the Deputy is saying. People have a duty to keep us advised of changes in their circumstances. I'm not suggesting that mistakes don't happen. We support 5,000 households at present and we pay out over £75 million a year in benefits. Of course, mistakes will be made. But it is fair on other benefit claimants, and it is fair on the taxpayer who fund income support that when someone has received money to which they are not entitled, they are asked to pay it back. That is done on a very controlled basis. Our guidelines, which have not been reviewed since the introduction of income support, suggest that we can start for a payment of £3 a day. I accept it, for some people that may be different, so we will discuss with people if anybody is struggling, and I can only emphasise this, as I have done throughout, if someone is struggling to repay an overpayment, they should come into the department and talk to us, and we will listen to them, and we will adjust their payment schedule to meet their needs. Thank you.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Between 2016 and 2019 in Australia, there was something called the robo-debt scandal, where overpayments were wrongly attributed by errors from the department, which led to the suicide of members of Australian society. Can I ask the Minister for reassurance that she is certain that nobody in this island has been put in a situation where they may have considered such actions because of large overpayments that they've been sent from the department? Thank you, sir.
The Deputy's asking me to confirm something that I can't possibly confirm, sir. But if anybody is struggling with overpayments, if they come to the department, we will discuss it with them.
Supplemental question, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. So can I confirm that the Minister cannot confirm that the department is not leading people into that way, and therefore the safeguarding procedures in place do not adequately address that issue?
Sir, we have very clear safeguarding procedures in place, and if my team have any concerns about a person's mental health, we will alert safeguarding, we will signpost them to people for support, and we will take that into account in planning their repayment schedule.
Deputy Kovacs.
Thank you, sir. Besides errors and delays in processing, we know that overpayments occur as well because people are having multiple benefits within CLS. Does the Minister consider of reviewing, because already in some circumstances this happens, does she consider reviewing to accumulate for people that have these multiple benefits in one payment to avoid having more overpayments because of different timings of processing and such?
Sir, I'm not sure I understand the question. People may they may have income support. People may also receive short-term incapacity. I imagine that's what the Deputy is talking about. Those are different types of benefits and they are awarded differently, and we will try to deal with any issues arising as best we can.
If it's supplemental question, Deputy Kovacs?
Yes, just to explain my question. When people have multiple benefits, they can't have more than 100% of the accumulation of it. And there are circumstances when they are asking this to be paid in all at once, especially to avoid of being deducted from one benefit after being paid on one, and that's when overpayment occurs. And on some circumstances, these are required.
I'm sorry, Deputy, we've reached the point where this time for questions to the Minister has now expired, so I'm afraid you can't complete your question.
So if the Minister is looking to consider that.
The next question period is the Minister of Treasury and Resources, Conor Tarbison. John.
Thank you, sir. So will the Minister confirm when he first became aware of a £900,000 loan due to Jersey Reds 2022 and the seriousness of Jersey Reds' financial difficulties? And if the Minister wasn't aware, was he given any assurances that they had no additional debt other than to the government?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. There are two different questions. My officials became aware of the loan between the two companies at the creditors' meeting. Was I aware, together with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, of the perilous state of Jersey Reds? That was a couple of months before, which is why we together made the decision to support the salary payments of the operational department. I think there was a third part, but I've just forgotten it. So.
Supplementary, sir. So, given the amount of public money currently at risk, has the Minister reported any concerns he may have either to the JFCU and or the JFSC? And if not, why not?
So I know that officials have been in contact throughout this period and the time that we paid the salaries with the UK official rugby body. I'm not aware of any contact with the JFSC.
Conor St Martin.
Could the Treasury Minister please provide details of the expected letter of comfort that the Minister is understood to be developing on the funding allocations for the Government of Jersey to respond to the recommendations of the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force, including the expected date of the letter's publication, the source of funding, and whether the outlined funds will be directly connected to particular recommendations within the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force report to allow for improved scrutiny? Thank you.
So I've not had such a letter presented to me by officials. It works whereby the department doing the work has got either pressures or priorities, and one would expect from hearing the Minister for Home Affairs answers to questions in this Assembly today that I wouldn't expect to be requested during this financial period to provide a letter of comfort. The department does its work. It looks at what is absolutely an emergency and it can't deliver from within its budget as currently forecast, and then they come to me to see if I will provide a letter of comfort whereby providing monies normally from reserves in order for them to do the work. I am not aware of such an approach yet having been made, but it sounds to me as though it may be in the process of being made, and I will consider it very carefully.
Yes, please, sir. Thank you. I was led to believe that there was a letter of comfort forthcoming, as I've stalled my amendments on funding for the recommendations to be implemented on the understanding that funding would be assured and secured through a letter of comfort. So I think, have a few minutes left to lodge my amendments. So if the Minister cannot guarantee the letter of comfort will be forthcoming, shall I quickly rush downstairs and lodge my amendments to secure funding?
So if as I heard the Minister correctly, the £200,000 to set up the task force is either delivered from within her budget or I will provide a letter of comfort. That is a separate issue to dealing with the recommendations, and the Minister has now set in train a process to deal with the recommendations. I think until she has brought forward the recommendations and financial implications, neither the Constable nor myself would be in a position to be able to say how much was required from the budget and how much might need to be covered by a letter of comfort.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I got stuck on the notion of a letter of comfort, which is a sort of guaranteed payment. I think it's called being a parent. Anyway, can I congratulate the Minister on the publication of the classifications of functions of government report, which I must say, sir, came from a rather splendid proposition brought to this Assembly. And just ask him whether what highlights and which features of that report have made the most impact to the Minister. Thank you, sir.
Can I congratulate the questioner on his question, following up his proposition for Jersey to carry out this work. I was surprised to learn that there are very few countries around the globe that actually do this COFOG work to allow for comparison across OECD countries. The thing that strikes me the most, that the Deputy may not like, is that we, for a low tax jurisdiction, provide pretty good public services that compare reasonably favourably with high tax jurisdictions.
Supplementary question?
Thanks, sir. I'm pleased that that's his takeaway because it may reinforce his rather... Anyway, so can I ask the Minister whether there are any other features, for example, of the comparison on a small jurisdiction where that he thinks might be influential in developing future policy? Thank you, sir.
I think the biggest difficulty is that there aren't really other small comparison jurisdictions that have done this work, which would be more informative to us. But it does show that we do compare, and it is helpful for policymakers when they're taking the broad strategic sweep of the balance between tax and spend, and where, when we compare with other jurisdictions, we might need to think about the appropriate prioritisation of our spending.
Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Given the Chief Minister's answers to questions around the Value for Money programme earlier seemed to suggest that there was somewhat a lack of leadership in terms of ministers setting priorities for that programme. Can the Minister give the Assembly assurance that the governance process that has been put in place by his department ensure that ministerial input and agreement is obtained?
So it struck me as during that period of question there was some confusion on behalf of the questioners, and I thought the Chief Minister did an excellent job in trying to untangle that. The reality is that the budgeting process for 2023 and again for 2024 has taken a 1% efficiency and removed it from departmental budgets. And so departments spend within the total overall allocation of their budget, and that's how it's being delivered. There is additional work which has got a very robust governance process around it happening in the Health Department. They are rightly pointing out and going back to almost to base budget and saying this amount of money, this service is not been appropriately funded from day one. This service, we have got extended pressures around waiting lists and number of patients requiring it. But equally, here are areas where we are behaving very inefficiently and we can make savings. The outcome of that is the government plan that we see for 2024, where we will be giving, I think, the department something like an additional £16 million. We will also be finding from underspends to deal with their overspend for 2023, although they are still on track to make that £3 million saving, and they will throughout this process. They'll have additional money to spend in those service pressure areas, but they will, by the end of the 3-year period, have also driven out £25 million worth of efficiencies, and that will be reoccurring.
Supplementary question, Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. I think I heard somewhere within that rather long answer that the Minister was saying that the Value for Money programme was the budgeting process. I understood that they were two different things, and the outcomes of the Value for Money programme would lead to further savings that are in the government plan. So can he undertake to tell the Assembly what the difference is between the budgeting process and the Value for Money programme?
So I think I just did, but perhaps I was too fulsome in my answer and therefore hid the answer. The reality is that efficiency savings have been taken out of departments to 1% worth, so that's 10 million in 23, 10 million in 24. Value for Money programme throughout 23 has focused on the financial turnaround team and supporting them across health. That programme is now making good progress. I'm on record as saying I'll have full confidence in it when I see the 3 million saving that they are proposing to make in 2023. I'm in good contact with those officials. They tell me they're on track to do that and maybe slightly more. And then they will turn to other departments and support them in delivering value for money right across government.
Deputy Hull.
Thank you, sir. As a follow-on from the question by the Constable of St John, I just wondered, when the government was asked to provide money to the Jersey Reds in July and August this year, can the Minister explain why the club finances were not investigated at that time?
And this, I think, is really at the heart of the Constable of St John's question as well, that there were two companies. One was raising funds, which it now transpires since the creditors' meeting, was raising funds and making loans to the operational company, which is where we got to that just less than £1 million. It is our understanding now that could have been converted ultimately into equity. But my officials, together with the Sustainable Economic Development Minister's officials, did, together with a local high street bank, did review the actual trading company and that is what ultimately led us to the decision that we could support no more.
Supplementary question, Deputy Hull?
I just wondered what usually happens in all these circumstances. How do you actually look? Because there was obviously a problem which wasn't picked up. And I just wonder if you could explain, if the Minister would be kind enough to explain.
Oh, I hope that I've been very clear, and I was very clear during the debate. There was a problem that was picked up. The two grants made in, I don't know if it was July and August or August and September, those two grants were made to pay the salaries, because if they hadn't been made, the club at that point would have ceased trading. So we were very aware of the problem. You can criticise us for saying that we shouldn't have made those two grants because there were a problem, but we made those two grants as both the I'm struggling to remember his new name, the Sustainable Economic Development Minister and myself, in order to allow the club to work with their major shareholders and to seek third-party investment. Became apparent after we'd made that second payment, after the Minister had sought to meet with the shareholders, that was not going to happen, and we knew that looking at the accounts, that we could not just keep bailing them out, and therefore we made the decision not to.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you. Following up on Deputy Howe's question, sir, in addition to the grants to the Jersey Reds, the public learnt of the deferral, the permission to defer paying money on behalf of employees to their respective social security and ISIS accounts. Which is, my questioning is, exactly what is the government policy for this, and what are the ethical implications of doing this, and what has been the impact on the employees of Jersey Reds insofar as the company has stopped trading?
So I welcome the Deputy's question, because there's been some publicity about how the department handles these debtors. And the reality, of course, is that during COVID, and to a large extent post-COVID, the department has been extremely lenient in chasing up these debts. I've been quite clear with the department that we will need to change that. We've seen some publicity of companies being prosecuted for non-return of the joint return, but we've also seen companies pursued and are often pursued for tax debt during petty debts. But we are needing to move to, in a post-COVID world, working with every business that has these debts and getting in place a payment plan, because what I think will find that if we don't put payment plans in place, the debt will continue to hang over that company, and when they get into a precarious position, it won't help them, it will actually tip them over the edge. With regard to the employees, which I know that the Deputy was also asking in her question, where we have the information from the return of the employer, which we do in this case, then those employees get credits against their tax rate and credits against their social security contribution history.
That brings the period for questions to this Minister to an end. And we now have questions for the Chief Minister. Deputy Hull.
Thank you, sir. Please can the Chief Minister confirm whether or not Professor Massey Taylor has had his contract as Chair of the Health Advisory Board extended, and for how long? Thank you, sir.
Thank you to the Deputy. I think it was made clear earlier in the week that the Professor has had his contract extended for one further month only, simply to enable a greater amount of time for the appointment of a full-time chair to be put in place, so that this board, which is widely recognised as being a great improvement in improving the transparency within health and community services, and also improving the, in terms of holding officials to account on the delivery of this essential service to islanders.
Supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, sir. Please can the Chief Minister confirm whether the Chair's remuneration will be at the rate of his current contract, I think some £21,000 per month, or at the rate of the substantive Chair, which would be £6,000 per annum? And where, if it is the former, will the additional money come from? Thank you, sir.
So I think the Deputy will appreciate that questions of a technical nature as such are not political questions. Therefore, I would have to seek some guidance. My understanding is that that post holder is paid on a day work basis at a rate that is widely considered to be a normal rate for a person of those skills and competencies.
Conor Hobson-Saviour.
Thank you, sir. So when the harbours and airports was set up as an autonomous entity, obviously the harbour and the airport were transferred to them, along with other lands and buildings. Does the Chief Minister not believe that certain parts, namely the La Folly Inn and the parade and the car parks to the right or west of La Folly, should be transferred back to the government so that the La Folly could be redeveloped into a nice restaurant, and to the west, that area would make an excellent base and parade ground for the long-suffering Jersey Sea Cadets since their forced relocation to Fort Regent? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
I thank the Deputy for the interesting question. I think what the Deputy is seeking is, thank you, Constable, apologies, Constable of St Saviour. I think what the Constable is seeking is something that falls under the oversight of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. However, I can assure the Constable that there appears to be I am aware that there appears to be some interest in the development, finally, of this site, which has lain empty for far too many years. It is one of the reasons for creating arm's-length organisations is to see a more business-like, agile approach to the use of public assets. And I'm really pleased to hear that this is finally making some progress. With regards to the Sea Cadets, they are always at the forefront of people's minds when considering different sites, and it is my understanding that discussions continue to be had as to where would be the appropriate full-time use place for that excellent service to be housed.
Supplementary question, Conor Hobson.
Thank you, sir. The original Jersey Sea Cadets unit up at T.S. Undaunted at Fort Regent is even more derelict than the La Folly Inn. Will the Chief Minister assure the Assembly that the new home for the Jersey Sea Cadets will be a priority in her government, sir? Thanks.
As I think I said in my previous answer, Constable, a full-time home for the Sea Cadets is a priority. It's something that is discussed and ministers are very aware of the need to provide an adequate home for them. I am aware that they are currently quite happy and comfortable in their current accommodation, but discussions about prioritisation and use of our many assets and facilities, they always take a good part of those considerations, and they certainly will not be forgotten.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. In the recently published letter of the Chief Minister accepting Constable Shane's resignation from the Council of Ministers, the Chief Minister mentioned that she shared some of the concerns the Constable expressed in his resignation letter. Could she please explain to the States Assembly the specific concerns she shares with the Constable and how specifically she intends to address them?
I thank the Deputy for the question. My concerns about our health department are those of, I think, most islanders. We want to ensure that the best possible services are delivered to within this most essential of services. If we cannot treat our sick and teach our kids, then we might as well pack up and go home. So it's vitally important that we deliver efficient, effective, quality services for health. And it is my concern that we get their budgets under control. What we inherited was, and I quote, a situation where that department was suffering from uncontrolled spending. I think that is clear now that we have made that and shared with the public through the financial recovery programme the position that the department is in. It is a serious piece of work and a matter of considerable focus to get the department back under control and recruiting essential workers to our service. In the past month, we have, not in the past month, but it has recently been confirmed that we have been able to recruit an additional 23 nurses, and that focus on recruitment and retention continues. We said at the beginning of this term of government that that would be one of our areas of relentless focus, and through the consistent and focused work that has been going on, creating an accommodation service, we are delivering upon that commitment.
Supplementary question, Deputy Scott?
Yes, please. The letter seemed to have concerns regarding the pace and cost of change. Could the Chief Minister please explain to the extent to which he's identified that States Employment Board's procedures and the extent to which the States Employment Board procedures contribute to this?
We're all impatient to deliver change. I think as States members, we're all committed to seeing that through and supporting each other in achieving it, because ultimately that's what islanders told us when we all stood for election. With regards to the procedures of the States Employment Board, it is a fact that for recruitment of a cost of over £100,000, every role has to come to the States Employment Board. But I think the Deputy would be one of the first people to agree that it's absolutely vital that the States Employment Board is assured by the proposals that are put forward to it before they sign them off. And so if any delay has happened or occurred as a result of that process, then I'm afraid, so be it. It's vitally important that we are assured on behalf of the public that public money is being spent wisely.
Conor St Brelard.
Thank you, sir. We heard over the past few days that a former chief officer had been appointed to the hospital board. Does the, without wishing to cast aspersions on the integrity of the individual, does the Chief Minister consider an appointment of a former chief officer is going to be well viewed by the public, and how does she intend addressing that situation? Thank you, sir.
Sir, the Constable will appreciate that this is an arm's length process of appointment, and it's being conducted by the Appointments Commission. My understanding is that they were keen to see that there was a local appointment to the Health Advisory Board. And sir, this was the appointment that was put forward. I prefer not to deal in personalities, but in policies and delivery. And I think this person brings with them a wealth of experience and a knowledge of our health system.
Supplementary question, Conor?
Sir, I'm trying to understand, will the Chief Minister be making a statement to satisfy the public that this is a good appointment. Thank you, sir.
So I have confidence in the Jersey Appointments Commission. It is their job to consider and oversee that process, and I have confidence in them doing so. I have worked closely with them on other appointments that have related to my portfolio, that in the interim chief executive appointment. It was an excellent appointment, and the process that I took part in alongside them I thought was excellent also.
Deputy Messick.
Thank you, sir. Given the events of the last few days, could the Chief Minister confirm whether or not any of her ministerial team have expressed a loss of confidence either in herself or her Health Minister?
There has been no such expression, sir.
Supplementary question?
Thank you, sir. And following the reshuffle that the Minister has undertaken, is she able to elaborate further on the delegations that will be made to her new Assistant Chief Minister following the departure of his predecessor?
That is a matter that will be worked up in the coming days. What I think is important is that we have worked already with the Constable of St Helier on the Future Places group, and he shares with us a determination to regenerate our urban areas. The Constable's suggestion was that he should be the Minister for St Helier, but actually there are many other areas of the island where regeneration is needed to improve the lives of our community. This government is focused on delivering and creating a community where everyone can thrive. And so this is an important area that can cut across, on my behalf, some of our other ministerial portfolios and work with ministers to ensure that we do deliver on the regeneration, the development and increase of supply of homes, but also other amenities that create open spaces and sustainable travel pathways for islanders to benefit from.
Deputy Rodwell.
Thank you, sir. I say to the Chief Minister and ask her, I and my colleagues were pleased to attend the launch of the Violence Against Women and Girls report and give our support to that. Can I ask the Minister where she is in terms of accepting and promoting the recommendations of that report? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I too attended that launch event and was very impressed by the number of people that were showing their interest in this important topic, something that I took a great interest in when I was Minister for Home Affairs and was the first to introduce the White Ribbon event, which I'm pleased to see Reform Party members wearing their white ribbons today. It's an important symbol. Along with the Minister for Home Affairs, I believe that it's important that we take time to consider the recommendations. They are many, and we will provide a considered response when we are ready to do so.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. In my drop-in constituency last night, I had a constituent, a man arrive and talk to about this very event and ask me, what can men be doing to support this? So I'd ask the same question to the Chief Minister, given that, let's be honest, the vast majority of episodes of violence against women and girls is perpetrated by men. So what would the Minister say to my constituent in terms of how he can be involved? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy for the question. If I consider some of the recommendations about people's behaviour in the wider community, I think it's incumbent upon us all, as members of our community, to show respect to each other. And I think that would be the simplest piece of advice to give, and that I think would meet some of the recommendations about displaying unnecessary behaviour in the wider community. And of course, when we see people who don't meet the respectful behaviour that we would expect of each other, then we should rightly call it out.
That brings the time available for questions to the Chief Minister to an end, and that closes question time. There is nothing under J, so we move on to L, public business. But before we start, there are a number of decisions, two in fact, to be made about whether to reduce the lodging period in respect of matters listed on the order paper. Firstly, the Minister for the Environment has lodged the 11th Amendment to the draft Public Health and Safety Rented Dwellers Licensing Jersey regulations. There is a need that the lodging period be reduced in accordance with Standing Order 26.7 to allow this matter to be debated at this meeting. Minister, do you make that proposition?
Yes, sir, if I may, and just to explain to the Assembly, members will be aware that Amendment 11 has been brought forward to resolve issues that arose from a series of scrutiny amendments that ended up having inadvertent complications that would have made it difficult to have had to have the debate. That led to the Assembly agreeing that we should defer debate until this meeting of the Assembly, in the hope that we could sort out the complications that had arisen. I'm pleased to say that we were able to resolve the issues, and I thank both the scrutiny panel and the GREF for their help, as well as officers in regulation. We were able to resolve the issues via what you might call a super amendment, Amendment 11, which wraps up as many of the issues as we possibly could, where we could agree with scrutiny, and left two outstanding issues for debate to come. Unfortunately, we missed the lodging deadline by a little under 2 days. This was a reflection of the complexity of the work and the desire to ensure that we got the amendment right. I think we did get it right, but the consequence was that we were a little late. I hope that members will feel that they've had enough time in the 12 days since we did lodge the amendment to consider it, and I also hope that they will agree that in the circumstances it is in the public interest to consider the amendment in this setting. Thank you.
Is the proposition seconded? Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Those against? Very well, we will take the 11th Amendment at this sitting. Next, Deputy Balash has lodged the draft Planning and Building Amendment number 8, repealed Jersey law, and again that lodging period needs to be reduced in accordance with Standing Order 26.7 to allow the matter to be debated at this meeting. Do you make that proposition, Deputy?
Yes, sir. If I may just say a few words about it. The proposition is currently set down for debate on the 12th of December, and the PPC has asked me whether it can be moved from that date, because obviously the government plan debate is going to take some time. This is a short law. The issue is pretty straightforward, and the uncertainty as to whether trees are to be regulated has been going on for some considerable time. And I believe that country people would appreciate if that uncertainty were to be removed and ended before Christmas. I think, therefore, sir, that it is in the public interest that the debate take place today, and I move the proposition.
Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, it's rather unusual for a backbencher to propose draft legislation before the Assembly, and I do really think that some time should be required for members to consider this important debate. Now that the Minister for the Environment has withdrawn P71, I think there is no hurry to debate this proposition, and I would suggest, as I have done personally to the Deputy, that the appropriate time to debate this would be in January.
Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir, and I beg to differ with that view in as much as I think members have had plenty of time to consider the issues at hand here. The notion that we're going to have tree legislation has been around for a certain number of months, and we've all had a lot of time to think about it. I think Deputy Balash is right in bringing this forward today, and I think the month between now and the beginning of January, when we might have the debate, we could have some fantastic opportunities to plant some trees that won't get planted while this debate has yet to be determined. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. I think there is a problem with, this Assembly rejects the reduction of lodging periods for certain individuals and others. And if it was about timing, then we've done that and brought something forward that could have been done last time when loads of things were withdrawn. I would also say that the implications of this are really quite significant. And I think people need to make sure that before they say, yeah, let's debate this now, they really do understand the entire implications of this change to the law, because it removes entirely, in my belief, and I'll be honest, sir, I need to go and look at it again and think this through really carefully as to what the actual implications of this are, to make the correct decision. And we are so employed to make decisions that we can back up in public and say, yes, I made this decision for this reason. So I hope people are certain. And as for this notion of, well, we can just plant more trees, that's not what this is about. And these emotive arguments about those in the country and planting trees, that's not what this is about. This is about changing the law to stop something else happening. And a piece of law, a debate that's coming through, that can be debated over the tree law coming from the Environment Department and the way that's working, which, okay, yes, there's been opposition to it. Okay, well, let's debate that then. But this, I believe, would stop that happening if it was passed now. And we're being asked to make that decision now. There is no rush for this. We have time to go away, consider in exactly the same way. And one of the criticisms of the other law that this would prevent is there hasn't been the time to understand it fully and its implications, etc. But what we're about to do as an assembly is to reduce the lodging period for a proposition that changes the law and the legislation that will stop something else happening without really understanding the implications of it. What I want to see is the application of logic here, sir, as to how we're going to make a decision and the knock-on consequence of that decision later on. And it's for that reason I can't say reduce the lodging period. Indeed, sir, I would suggest that this is taken in January to give us time away from the government plan, because if it's at the end of the government plan, sir, and I don't want to cast aspersions on any of us, when we're tired, sometimes perhaps we don't make the best decisions in this assembly. And so let's move it further on, put it in January, give us all time to really consider what this means. You never know, I might support it. I don't know. I haven't really seen the real knock-on implications of this for the other tree laws and what this will mean. So I would suggest that I just think it's a bad idea to reduce this today. And indeed, sir, I would say move it to January, because there is not an emergency to do this right now. Thank you, sir.
Renf.
Thank you, sir. Having asked for a shortened lodging period for P40, I'm now going to argue against a shortened lodging period for P90 in a way which I can assure members is entirely consistent. And it's because lodging periods should only be shortened when necessary. Prior to the weekend, perhaps there was a case that could be made in that P90 would have turned up on the order paper for the December the 12th sitting, which is also the government plan sitting, and it was also the case that P71, the Commencement Act that I was planning to bring forward, would have been scheduled shortly afterwards for debate. However, there is now no need for urgency. I have withdrawn P71 and said that I will not be bringing back any further proposals or any new proposals for at least 6 months. And I have committed to further consultation within that period. Now, I know that Deputy Balash will argue he has a fundamental objection, a principled objection to bringing trees within the meaning of development, and he wants to clarify this. Fair enough, it is a debate worth having, but it is not necessary to have it now, which is the test we should be applying. It will make absolutely no difference to whether we have the debate in December or in January next year, for that matter, as several people have suggested. Absolutely nothing is going to happen to give effect to Amendment number 8 to the planning law. One of the reasons I gave for withdrawing P71 was that several people opposed to the proposition have given, namely that in the aftermath of Storm Ciarán, it is not the right time to be pushing forward with a debate about the details of tree protection. I've accepted that argument, but I would make the same argument with regard to P90. Rescinding that part of Amendment 8 that brought trees within the planning system would be a very big step. It is a debate I'm very happy to have, and I think it is appropriate, given the response that we've seen to the proposals that I've brought forward, that we should have that debate to see whether this Assembly is of the same view as the previous Assembly on this matter. But we should give that matter our full consideration, as Deputy Ward has said. It took well over a year to bring Amendment number 8 forward and to bring it through this Assembly. There was consultation, it was referred to scrutiny. Fair enough if this Assembly doesn't want to carry on down that road. I will accept that verdict, but I respectfully request that we have the debate in full having had time for all members to prepare and not rush into it right now. Thank you.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I think this highlights what I believe to be a hole in the scrutiny function, which is that when a non-executive member of the state brings forward legislation, scrutiny doesn't scrutinise it. And for me, that's a really dangerous place. And I remember when I was in scrutiny, I raised this as an issue. But still, I think this really shows us what an issue there is, because here we have some member of the Assembly bringing forward an amendment which, if passed, would actually repeal an entire law, and we have had no actual formal scrutiny of that. I feel that that is the wrong place for us to be. I think it shows a very dangerous area of the way the states can operate, and I would ask the Environment, Infrastructure and Housing Scrutiny Panel to undertake scrutiny of this in a proper and formulaic way, in the way that they would if a minister was bringing exactly the same piece of legislation forward. As a result of my thinking in these terms, there is no way that I would vote for a shortened lodging period, because if the Environment Scrutiny Panel is not going to do what I believe it should do, which is scrutinise this, then it is down to us as individual members of the states to do that scrutiny ourselves. And as this is about legislation, I believe we need all the time available to us to undertake that scrutiny. And so, sir, yes, I do not support the shortening of this lodging period.
Deputy Scott.
Sir, the last speaker mentioned holes in scrutiny. The trouble is I don't really think that anything's going to be quite resolved in that respect. And with respect to what the Minister for Environment said, I believe that there are just fundamental issues about the mechanism for in which the Minister is proposing to advance trees, which remains of some sort of constitutional concern to the States Assembly. And it's simply this, that the amendment of the law itself appears draconian. It can be softened and qualified by ministerial order, but if the States Assembly doesn't accept that ministerial order, if it annuls it as it is entitled to do, we are left with a draconian change to the law. So, and that isn't an issue that is easily resolved and will not be resolved overnight. I still am contemplating where I am in this, but it is just something I thought was worth mentioning. Sorry, sir, and one other thing. When I said that it's one thing that's being advanced by the Minister, this is actually in advance of, without regard to a tree strategy that has been actually crafted, in which thought that the Minister would consult with a sounding board. I've hoped to remedy that by filing lodging a proposition in that respect.
Deputy Taddy.
Thanks, sir. I'm just approaching this from a slightly different position. First of all, irrespective of what we might think about the tree law or the amendment that's in front of us, clearly it's not in time to be debated at this sitting without this proposition to change that. I just wonder whether Deputy Balash had considered insisting on what is his right to have it listed at the next sitting. It doesn't matter that we've got a government plan being debated at that sitting. I'm sure that if the Assembly if he was to insist that it be debated either at the beginning of that sitting, which I think is logical, or indeed at the end, I think we might all be a bit tired by the end of a government plan, that given the fact he said in his opening remarks that it's a fairly straightforward matter and that it shouldn't take too much time, I don't see why we wouldn't, as an alternative to this, list it as the first item of business at the next sitting. It would be on the table for the requisite amount of time, and it would do everything that the Deputy wishes it to do ahead of the big tree law, which we could then know the outcome of that, of the Deputy's proposition, and it would be an order, sir. But certainly as things stand, given the fact that that option is still on the table, is what I would be doing if I was the mover of the proposition, that I don't think we need to shorten the lodging period for it to be debated today in this sitting.
Conor Thompson Bullard.
Thank you, sir. As mover of the 21st Amendment to the Government Plan last year, which principally requested funding for tree protection broadly, I'm keen that we don't lose the ability to protect trees. I think, to be fair, I was sceptical about the Minister's latest proposals, but I think we have we need to have further debate on how we achieve tree protection in the island, and it's clear that there is a public want to do that. By the same token, sir, we have to respect landowners who are the principal owner of trees and the planter of trees, and also the arboricultural business trade, if you like, who have vested interests in trees, not only looking after them, but of course maintaining them. So whilst I understand where the Deputy Marshal is coming from, I think we need to, I don't think I can support his proposition at present, and I'd like to see further development towards a methodology of how we can deal with the protection of trees, and would support the Minister in what proposals he may come up with next and contribute to discussions. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Dominic.
Sorry, sir. I think this is really a practical matter. We've just experienced a storm where we've lost between 20 and 30,000 trees. There's been talk about the implementation of this tree law. It's caused deep offence to virtually all of the people that are responsible for the fine countryside that we have. We'll be looking to those people to replace those trees this coming winter. And I think we need to send a very clear signal to them that government isn't going to start interfering with them. And I'd like to urge people to accept this debate. We can clear this down and get on with the business of tidying up the countryside and having a vote of trust in the people that we're relying on to not only do the work, but to pay for it, sir. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? To Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Just Deputy Morrow raised an interesting question. It is the role of scrutiny, of course, to scrutinise ministerial process, I believe. Perhaps some advice from the chair. So was there anything to stop a scrutiny chair asking to scrutinise this legislation, subject to it being approved?
If you'll bear with me a moment, I will seek to ask that question. So the greffier confirms what my instinctive view of standing orders was likely to be. Yes, any proposed legislation after the principles have been adopted can be called in by the scrutiny panel.
Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition?
So may I ask a quick question on what you've just said?
Yes.
I've got to get this question right. A piece of legislation is brought in after the principles have been adopted in the second reading. Because this is an amendment to original legislation, that principle was adopted with the original legislation, so therefore we wouldn't have to go through that process, and this would be, if it was to be scrutinised, pulled in as a second, effectively a second reading.
No, it's not been adopted. This is a standalone law, as I understand the position. Just let me turn to the appropriate. Yes, it's a standalone law. It's a repeal law. If it's a standalone law, you have to first propose the principles of the standalone law, the repeal law. And if you do that, then if the principles are adopted, then it can be called into scrutiny.
But so my confusion is because this is an amendment to one piece, I believe, of an already existing law.
Yes.
I'm not sorry, so I just not quite sure. I'm wondering if others.
Well, I'm not sure I can say anything more than I've done. The amendment is to be brought about, if it is adopted by the Assembly, by the adoption of a law repealing that particular section. The law itself has a passage which is principles, followed by the possibility of scrutiny, then second reading, then third reading. And that's true of any law that comes before the Assembly, it is, as opposed to any other kind of proposition. So there will be the opportunity to call the matter in for scrutiny if the principles are adopted.
Sir,
Deputy Scott, is it a question?
just following up on Deputy Ward's question, if the States Assembly adopted the law in principle and scrutiny called it in, essentially they would be reviewing what seems to be a sentence about that a law will be repealed. But if I understand it, that the States Assembly would have agreed in principle that the law would be repealed. So does that not therefore suggest that what Deputy Farnham suggested in terms of the role of scrutiny is more or less made redundant in that instance, because the states would have to approve the appeal of the law in order to have that?
No, Deputy, the Assembly approves the principle of the appeal. The actual operative appeal is contained in the operative provisions at second reading. So the states can say, in principle, we think this is a good idea, but scrutiny could, in theory, come back and say, for the following reasons, it's highly problematic. And then the states would not need to adopt in second reading, and the law would fall away, if that assists you. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? If no other member wishes to speak, I close the debate and call upon Deputy Balash to respond.
So this is a matter for the Assembly. I bring forward the proposition at the request of the PPC. I will only say that I do not think that the Minister for the Environment fully understands the anxiety that his different proposals in relation to trees have brought upon the country community. And that is the urgency, to get rid of that anxiety, and that is why I believe it is in the public interest to debate it today. I maintain the proposition and I ask for the appel.
Sir, I may ask the Deputy if he would give way for a very genuine point of clarification, please.
From him? You clarify? Yes. Well, would you give way for a point of clarification from you, Deputy? It's a matter for you.
A point of clarification, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy. It was just to ask, I understood the Deputy say that he brought it forward at the request of PPC. I may have misheard that, and I just wanted to clarify that, if that was
No,
correct.
the Deputy said that both in his closing speech and in his opening speech. He said it both in his closing speech and in his opening remarks. I don't think you need to clarify that.
Can I ask what that, can you clarify what that means, sir? Why would PPC request this?
The matter was down for debate on the 12th of December. The PPC, as I understand it, was not happy that the amount of business, with the amount of business which is laid down for debate on that day, and asked me, first of all, whether I would consider bringing the matter forward for today. I agreed to do so, and I subsequently received a message from the PPC to the effect that they thought that perhaps a date in January would be preferable. I maintained my position that there is, as I have said, an anxiety in the community, and I think that anxiety ought to be brought to a close, and that's why I have proposed the proposition that I have proposed.
I thank the Deputy President.
Very well. Conrad St Martin, you can ask the Deputy if he gives way for a point of clarification, or but you haven't spoken, so you can't clarify anything you've said. So otherwise the debate is over. So. Very well. The appellate is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on whether or not Deputy Balash's proposition can be taken at this sitting. I ask the greffier to open the voting. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been defeated. 20 votes pour, 26 votes contre, no abstention.
Can we have the pour, please?
Yes.
Those members voting for the Connotab of Trinity, St Peter, St Martin, St John, St Clement, Rouville, St Juan and St Saviour and Deputies Labby, Luce, Lehegara, Ayer, Farnham, Balash, Scott, Rose Binet, Hal, Tom Binet, Ferry, and Barbara Ward.
Sir, thank you, sir. Can I just test the mood of the Assembly, sir?
Whether we adjourn now and carry on after lunch?
Yes, sir, because...
It did occur to me that as we have 11 minutes left before I'm required to call upon the adjournment, whether members, given that we're starting now major legislation, would prefer to start after luncheon. And the only matter that I think falls to be considered, if members do agree with that, is what time, whether we go to 2:15 or whether we go to 2 o'clock.
Would it help, sir, if I proposed that
yes,
we go
perhaps
now
if you
start
did.
at 2:15 to allow members to conduct their lunchtime commitments? Thank you.
Very well. There's a proposition then that we adjourn immediately and resume at 2:15. Is that seconded? Is there any members to speak? Deputy Ward.
So all I wanted to say, sir, is I agree with that. I just want, if I may, point out that there is some opportunity in the side rooms to donate to myself and the wonderful Constable Grouville's Movember appeal in order to raise money, to raise awareness around men's health, which I think is a great event. And please dig deep. Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to seeing how you tie that speech to the proposition that's immediately before.
I apologise, sir. I
apologise.
I think it's a great proposition to the region. I think it gives people time to do that. Sir.
Yes, very well. Does any other member wish to speak? Perhaps not on the matter of moustaches.
No, sir. I would, if I may, not part of the proposition, but I'd like to thank the Lieutenant Governor for bringing in those lovely petit fours for the members' room, sir.
Does anyone have anything else to say that isn't at all related to the proposition before the Assembly?
No, I'd like the appel.
Does any other member wish to speak? If no other member wishes to speak, I'm going to rule those last two speeches as not at all touching upon, and therefore not going to give Deputy Farnham the opportunity to respond. And in those circumstances, those in favour of adopting the proposition...
I do want the appel, please.
You'd like the appel? Very well. The appel is called for.
Do I not get a right to reply, sir?
No, you don't get a right to reply because nobody spoke about anything you said. I invite members to return to their seat. The vote is on whether or not we adjourn now and resume at 2:15. And I ask the referee to open the voting. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, and I ask the referee to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 40 votes pour, 3 votes contre, no abstention. The Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.